Welcome back, brothers to Warhammer. Tonight we're diving into what will happen if the Blood Angel was able to return. As always, before we get to madness, be sure to like and comment the videos and topics you want to see in the future. Be sure to subscribe for the Emperor. I want to thank you guys for the support. You've been killing it. Now, let's get into the madness.
Armageddon burned beneath a sky crowded with warships. The planet's polluted atmosphere had become a shroud of ash, weapon discharge and corpse smoke, pierced by the descending fire of troop carriers and the ascending streaks of defense missiles. Whole continental regions had vanished beneath storm systems manufactured by artillery. Prometheum seas burned where storage continents had ruptured. Hive belts lay broken open from orbit, their manufactorum districts spilling molten steel into the trenches below. Above that ruin, the Void War had become too vast for mortal comprehension. Thousands of vessels drifted, accelerated, and died across the Armageddon system. Imperial battleships advanced in serried formations, their armored prows painted with devotional script and the accumulated scars of centuries. Lance batteries fired with the brilliance of captive suns. Macro cannon shells crossed hundreds of thousands of kilometers before striking void shields in blossoms of blue-white fury. Orc fleets met them without order and without fear. Ram ships hammered into Imperial monitor stations, driving blunt prows through armor, barracks, and reactor chambers. Crude attack moons burned above the equator, their surfaces crowded with gun emplacements, launch pits, and fortress towers built from the bones of conquered vessels. Hulks assembled from asteroids, and wrecked cruisers vomited clouds of fighter bombers into the void. Troop transports descended in numbers that turned night into a second dawn. Hundreds of millions of soldiers were dying below. Hundreds of millions more were still approaching the surface. From the strategium of the Blade of Vengeance, Commander Dante watched Armageddon die by degrees. The command deck was a cathedral devoted to the mathematics of slaughter. Tactical hololiths filled the chamber with crimson light. Armageddon rotated above the central dais, its continents obscured beneath threat runes, casualty projections, and orbital bombardment zones. Servo skulls drifted between command stations. Carrying Dante stood at the center of it all. His golden armor reflected the blood-red light. The death mask of Sanguinius concealed the face beneath, hiding the scars of more than 15 centuries. A cloak of dark crimson hung from his shoulders, its hem marked by the soot of the war below. Reports reached him without pause. Orc breakthrough confirmed across the Anthrand hive belt. Imperial armor reserves reduced by half. Void shield collapse predicted over Hive Infernus. Enemy vessels translating at the outer system boundary. Flesh tearers requesting immediate orbital suppression. Dante listened to each voice. He answered none in haste. "Redirect the 7th Naval Attack Wing," he said. His voice emerged through the mask as a sepulchral resonance. "They are to strike the ramship formation approaching Monitor Bastion Sable." A mortal officer bowed over his station. "The wing has lost 2/3 of its strength, Lord Regent." "Then they will require fewer fuel tenders. Send them." "Yes, Lord Regent." "Order the Crimson Exhortation to launch every remaining Thunderhawk. Their first target is Volcanus. Their second is whatever survives the first." Another officer turned from the auger displays. Blood ran from one nostril, the consequence of too many hours beneath the strain of the command throne's neural relays. "Lord Regent, the Salamanders report civilian extraction has failed in 3 hive sectors. Orc forces are feeding the population into industrial furnaces." Dante regarded the rotating world. "How many remain?" 37 million confirmed, perhaps twice that number unaccounted for. "Can the furnaces be reached?" "Not without abandoning the Western defense line." "Then the Western defense line will hold without them." The officer hesitated. Dante looked toward him. The hesitation died. "Transmit the order." A new cluster of crimson symbols appeared over Hive Volcanus. Each represented an orc war mob large enough to overwhelm an Astra Militarum regiment. There were hundreds. At their center moved the flesh tearers. Gabriel Seth killed the first orc by driving Blood Reaver through its chest and out between its shoulder blades. The eviscerator's adamantine teeth screamed as they chewed through armor plate, sternum, organs, and spine. Blood erupted across Seth's armor in a steaming sheet. The orc convulsed around the blade, tusked mouth gaping in astonishment, before Seth kicked the corpse free. The dead alien struck 3 of its kin and knocked them beneath the advance of the flesh-tearers. High Volcanus had ceased to resemble a city. Its hab towers were broken teeth beneath a blackened sky. Manufactorum stacks had collapsed across avenues broad enough to carry armored battalions. Rail lines burned. Chimneys vomited greasy smoke through the storms. Everywhere, the dead had been crushed into the mud until flesh, soil, and chemical runoff had become one substance. Seth advanced through it. His warriors followed in a wedge of red armor and roaring chain blades. Heavy bolt pistols thundered at arm's length. Mass reactive shells punched through orc bodies before detonating within them, throwing shredded organs and splintered ribs across the ruins. A flesh-tearer seized an orc by the throat and drove it against a shattered wall. His power fist closed. The alien's neck burst between his fingers. Its head dropped into the rubble, while the body remained upright for several heartbeats, black blood jetting from the ruined stump. Another orc charged with a cleaver held in both hands. Seth turned beneath the blow and swept Blood Reaver through its waist. The chain blade entered above the hip and tore across the pelvis, scattering bone fragments and loops of intestine. The upper half of the alien fell forward, still snarling, dragging itself through its own entrails until Seth stamped upon its skull. The impact drove tusks through the back of its head. "Forward," Seth growled. His warriors obeyed. Jump packs ignited among the ruins. Flesh-tearers rose upon pillars of fire, clearing wrecked armor and collapsed structures before descending into the orc masses. Their landings crushed bodies beneath ceramite boots. Chainswords carved through shoulders and spines. Power fists reduced skulls to wet fragments that sprayed across breastplates and visors. The orcs came on laughing. They filled the avenue from wall to wall, a green tide of muscle, iron, and yellowed fangs. Crude firearms spat shells large enough to tear mortal soldiers apart. Rockets struck masonry and transformed it into storms of razored stone. Choppers hammered against power armor. Claws closed around limbs and dragged warriors into the mob. One flesh-tearer vanished beneath a living avalanche. Seth saw red armor disappear beneath grasping hands. The warrior fired until his bolt pistol clicked empty. His chainsword rose once, twice, then was torn away. Orcs wrenched his arms from their sockets. Blood burst from the armor seals in pressurized fountains. A power claw closed around his helmet and crushed it inward. The warrior's death came across the squad vox as a single burst of static. Seth answered with a roar. He charged. Blood Reaver rose and fell, opening an orc from collarbone to groin. The blade clogged with ropes of bowel and strips of leather harness. Seth tore it free and swung again, severing 2 arms and burying the roaring teeth in a third alien's jaw. "Come then," he snarled. "Come and test the sons of Sanguinius." The orcs surged toward him. Far above the slaughter, Mephiston heard a heartbeat. He stood within the strategium's shadowed outer ring, separated from the mortal command staff by an instinctive absence of proximity. Even those accustomed to the presence of the Adeptus Astartes avoided the Lord of Death. His armor was the red of arterial blood. His face was pale and motionless, framed by dark hair. He appeared calm. Within his soul, something paced against its chains. The psychic presence of the Orc War pressed across Armageddon like a migraine given planetary scale. It was crude, exuberant, and violent, an ocean of instinctive belief formed from uncounted alien minds. Mephiston had known its pressure since the fleet entered the system. This was different. The rhythm came from beneath it, slow, deliberate, ancient, a heart beating inside a tomb. Mephiston closed his eyes. The strategium vanished. For an instant, He stood within a chamber of black iron. Blood coated the floor. A broken sword lay nearby. Feathers drifted through smoke, each one white at the root and red at the tip. A shadow filled the chamber. The War Master raised his mace. The heartbeat sounded again. Mephiston felt ribs breaking beneath the blow. He opened his eyes. The hololithic displays flickered. Several servitors convulsed in their sockets. Blood ran from the ears of a nearby astropath. Dante turned toward him. "What do you perceive?" Mephiston listened to the pulse moving through the warp. An invocation. Orc? No. Demonic? Not entirely. Dante's mask regarded him without expression. That answer is of little value. It is the only answer I possess. Another heartbeat rolled across the system. This time every blood angel in the strategium felt it. Sanguinary guards stiffened around the dais. Chapter officers turned toward one another. One of the serfs cried out and collapsed as the neural interface fused inside his skull. Mephiston looked toward the orbital display. "There," he said. A dead refinery drifted beyond the primary fleet engagement, hidden within a field of wreckage. Its auger signature had been mistaken for reactor decay and leaking fuel. It was neither. Within the refinery, men who had renounced humanity completed their work. Black Legion sorcerers stood around a machine built from theft, desecration, and memory. Their armor was black and gold, its surfaces engraved with the names of murdered worlds. Incense burned inside braziers fashioned from Astartes' helmets. Dark Mechanicum adepts moved between cables and pumping pistons, their robes concealing bodies rebuilt into crawling conglomerations of brass limbs and preserved flesh. The Angelbane engine filled the refinery's central chamber. Noctilith pylons rose around a corroded plate of iron stained almost black. The plate had been taken, so the sorcerers claimed, from the bridge of the vengeful spirit, from the place where the great angel had fallen. Around it stood caskets of stolen gene seed. Hundreds of progenoid glands floated within blood-filled vessels. Each one had been cut from a son of Sanguinius. Some were still alive when the harvesting began. A dark Mechanicum magos lowered his many-jointed limbs before the central console. Resonance achieved. The leading sorcerer raised both hands. "Then let the sons remember the father." The engine fired. Across Armageddon, the blood angels screamed. Across Baal, warriors collapsed within chapels, armories, and training halls. Across distant war zones, blood angels and their successors were torn from the present and hurled into the final moments of a murdered demigod. Pilots tore off their helmets inside descending gunships. Thunderhawks rolled from formation and collided in mid-air. A storm raven struck an Imperial trench line at full speed, plowing through men and armor before its fuel cells detonated. On strike cruisers, battle brothers attacked their own serfs. Bolter fire thundered through cloisters. Chapter thralls died beneath the hands of masters who no longer saw them as human. Death Company warriors broke their restraints. Chaplain Lamates roared commands into a storm of madness, but the lost no longer heard him. They saw Horus. They saw only Horus. Upon high Vulcanus, flesh-tearers staggered. Some fell to their knees. Others turned upon the nearest living shapes. Seth felt the world become a chamber aboard the vengeful spirit. The orcs disappeared. His warriors disappeared. Before him stood Horus Lupercal, armored in darkness, his face filled with pity. Seth attacked. Bloodreaver carved through the torso of a flesh-tearer who had stepped into his path. Red armor split. Both hearts burst beneath the chain blade. The warrior stared at his chapter master as blood flooded his mouth. Seth wrenched the weapon free. For one terrible instant, he understood what he had done. Then Horus was before him again. Upon the blade of vengeance, Commander Dante fell to his knees. The strategium became the place of his father's death. He saw the War Master's face. He heard Sanguinius's wings breaking. He tasted blood. Not his blood. His father's blood. The talon of Horus opened Sanguinius from chest to abdomen. Flesh peeled apart, ribs cracked, organs glistened beneath the chamber's failing light. Dante screamed, his axe ignited in his hand. A sanguinary guard approached him, speaking words Dante could not hear. Horus. It was Horus. Dante swung. The guard caught the descending axe upon his power blade. The impact shattered the weapon and drove him to one knee. Lord Regent! Dante raised the axe again. 15 centuries rose within him. Baal Secundus, Hive Tempestora, the Cryptus system, the devastation, names of the dead, names of brothers, names of worlds he had failed and worlds he had saved. He forced the memory down. Not Horus, not Terror, Armageddon. The axe halted a finger's breadth above the guard's helm. Dante's breath rasped behind the mask. "Bind every afflicted warrior," he said. "Kill those who cannot be bound." The order nearly destroyed him. He gave it anyway. In the ruins of Hive Volcanus, the sky turned gold. Anti-aircraft batteries opened fire. Tracer rounds and rockets rose through the smoke. Shells detonated around a descending figure, but the blasts did not slow it. The Sanguinor came down with wings spread wide. Golden armor blazed amid the filth of Armageddon. The death mask looked upon the madness below. Orcs fired upward. Blood angels slaughtered one another. Flesh-tearers howled the name of Horus through broken vox channels. The Sanguinor did not attack. It convulsed. Its back arched. Its wings spasmed. Cracks spread across the golden death mask. Light shone through them. Then blood began to flow. It poured from the eye lenses and mouth grill, running across the breastplate in shining streams. The armor split at the chest. Something inside it pressed outward. Mephiston saw the truth. The golden presence that had guarded the sons of Sanguinius for 10,000 years was being dragged toward the darkness within their blood. The Savior and the Fury, the Angel and the Beast, two halves of an inheritance that had never truly been separate. The Angel-Bane engine was forcing them together. Mephiston reached into the warp. He gathered his will to sever the connection. A voice spoke within him. It was not the voice of the Sanguinor. It was not the voice of the Black Rage. It was older than the Imperium, warmer than blood, and heavier than grief. Stand aside. Mephiston obeyed. The Sanguinor's armor ruptured. Molten gold exploded across Hive Volcanus. Orcs became blackened silhouettes, and then drifting ash. Blood angels were hurled from their feet. The shockwave stripped flesh from exposed bone and flattened the ruins for hundreds of meters. Vast white wings unfolded through the fire. A figure stood within the broken armor, bareheaded, terrible and beautiful. Blood streamed across a face known to every son of Baal. His eyes held the light of dying stars. An orc in looted mega armor charged through the flames, roaring as its power claw closed. A bare hand caught the claw. Golden lightning crawled over pale skin. The fingers tightened. The power claw collapsed inward with the scream of tortured metal, crushing the orc's hand inside it. The alien stared upward. Sanguinius looked beyond it. He looked upon the suns tearing one another apart, upon the orc hordes, upon the burning hives and the poisoned heavens. When he spoke, his voice carried across every vox channel on Armageddon. "Which of you has made my sons scream?" The orc stared at the ruin of its power claw. Crude pistons shrieked within the weapon's housing. Cables snapped and spat sparks across the alien's scarred face. Its fingers had become a knot of crushed bone and iron inside the mangled gauntlet, yet pain had not reached the brute's understanding. It possessed only the bewilderment of an animal watching the laws of existence betray it. Sanguinius tightened his grip. The remaining metal folded inward. Black blood burst from the seams of the claw and ran between his fingers. The orc opened its tusked mouth to roar. Sanguinius seized its throat with his other hand and lifted it from the ground. He remembered that weight. He remembered the brutish density of orc flesh, the layered muscle, the strength born without discipline or grace. He remembered worlds brought into compliance beneath his legion's blades. He remembered green hordes dying in continents of fire, while the Great Crusade advanced beneath the banners of a father who had forbidden worship and accepted obedience as though the distinction absolved him. He remembered too much. The orc's legs kicked above the broken stones. Sanguinius looked into its small red eyes. "You are not the one." He closed his hand. The neck came apart with a wet crack. Vertebrae splintered beneath his fingers. The head sagged against the shoulder, held to the body by hide and torn cords of muscle. Sanguinius cast the carcass aside. Gunfire hammered the ruins. Heavy shells tore through the air where he had stood. He was already moving. The battle wagon came through the smoke behind a blade of riveted armor, its wheels grinding bodies into the mire. Plates taken from Imperial tanks had been welded across its prow. Gun towers shook upon its spine. Orcs crowded every platform, firing big shooters and waving cleavers, while the driver drove directly toward the golden figure in the ruins. Sanguinius saw the vehicle strike him. He saw its prow break his legs and carry his body beneath the wheels. He saw himself leap aside, allowing the machine to pass, and watched the battle wagon's guns butcher 3 squads of flesh-tearers in the next 11 seconds. He saw fire. He chose it. His wings opened. The first downward beat shattered windows throughout the avenue. Dust and blood rose in a circular wave. Sanguinius crossed the distance before the orcs upon the vehicle could turn their weapons. He struck the battle wagon head-on. Armor plate folded around him. Rivets became molten fragments. The vehicle's prow collapsed into its engine compartment, driving gears and drive shafts through the orcs packed behind it. Sanguinius passed through fuel tanks, ammunition drums, and screaming crew in a detonation that tore the battle wagon apart from within. The wreck became a rising sphere of fire. Orcs vanished inside it. Bodies burst into black silhouettes, then fragments. Wheels taller than mortal men tore free and bounded through the street, crushing fighters from both armies. A turret climbed into the smoke, trailing cables and severed limbs. Sanguinius emerged through the vehicle's rear. Burning fuel streamed across his shoulders. The outer feathers of his wings had blackened and curled in the heat. Several had burned down to glowing shafts. Before his feet touched the ground, new white veins pushed through the scorched flesh. Gabriel Seth saw them grow. He had torn his helm away during the psychic assault. Blood covered his face, some of it his own, most belonging to the brother he had killed beneath the illusion of Horus. Around him, the flesh-tearers struggled to recover. Some remained on their knees, weapons locked in trembling hands. Others stared at the bodies of warriors they had butchered, while lost within their Primarch's death. Seth felt no reverence. He felt hunger, anger, and a terror too old to admit its name. The figure walking from the fire wore no armor. Molten fragments of gold clung to his limbs and chest, like remnants of a broken shell. His flesh was pale beneath soot and alien blood. His wings spread behind him with every feather restored. No warrior should have survived the impact. No Primarch should have risen from 10,000 years of death. Seth had seen miracles before. Most had possessed teeth. The wreckage left by the Sanguinor burned at the center of the avenue. Half-melted plates of golden armor lay around a crater lined with glass. Within the ruin rested the encarmine broadsword, its blade dark with heat. Sanguinius approached it. Orc rounds crossed the avenue. He leaned aside before the nearest gun fired. The shell passed the place his skull had occupied and struck an orc behind him, bursting the alien's chest. He stepped forward before a second weapon discharged. He turned his shoulder before a third. Every movement began an instant before the threat existed. He bent and closed his fingers around the sword. The weapon changed. The crossguard lengthened beneath his hand. Molten gold crawled across the grip and hardened into the shape of wings. The broadsword's edge brightened from ember red to white, then settled into a crimson radiance that seemed to pulse with the beating of a living heart. The blade grew longer. Its proportions became those of a weapon forged for a Primarch rather than an angelic apparition. Seth knew the image from reliquaries, frescoes, and the illuminated lies of the ecclesiarchy. The blade and carmine. A weapon lost to history had returned in the hand of its master. Mephiston's voice entered the vox, quiet beneath the static and screaming. I cannot determine what I am seeing. Seth spat blood into the mud. That is reassuring. The material composition is shifting without measurable energy discharge. It may be psychic reconstruction. Or reality may be yielding to him. Seth watched Sanguinius raise the sword. That is less reassuring. The great angel looked across high Vulcanus. The battle revealed itself to him as 1,000 futures layered upon the present. He saw orc mobs turning east beneath the shouted orders of a knob with a brass jaw. He saw their movement surround the flesh-tearers and crush them against the ruins within 4 minutes. Sanguinius crossed the avenue. The knob had not yet raised its weapon to signal the advance when the blade in carmine passed through its neck. The head spun away, jaws still opening to shout. The body remained upright as Sanguinius moved beyond it. He saw an artillery battery firing from behind a manufactorum wall. Its guns were silent. Their crews were loading the next barrage. Sanguinius stepped through the pattern of shell impacts before the first cannon discharged. Explosions followed him, each blast arriving where he had been. Masonry rose in walls of pulverized stone. Orcs died beneath their own fire. The great angel passed between detonations untouched. He reached the battery as its loaders stared at him. The blade in carmine swept once. 6 orcs came apart. The cut passed through weapons, arms, torsos, and armor plates without slowing. Bodies opened in steaming halves. Organs slid from rib cages. An orc gunner remained alive long enough to look down at the lower portion of its body, lying several paces away. Sanguinius drove his free hand through the breech of the nearest cannon. He tore out the firing assembly and hurled it through the crew of the second gun. Iron components smashed skulls, drove ribs through lungs, and nailed one orc to the weapon behind it. The third cannon fired. Sanguinius was no longer there. He had seen the shot before the gunner touched the trigger. The shell crossed the battery and struck a fuel cistern. Burning promethium engulfed the orcs in a rolling tide. They staggered from the fire, skin sloughing from their bodies, lungs filling with flame. Sanguinius watched them burn for a single heartbeat. Then he looked toward the west. Something immense was coming. Gorzag Skullkrumper had killed 3 Imperial Knights and worn their remains ever since. Sections of a Knight Paladin's carapace had been hammered across the war boss's shoulders. Pistons taken from an armiger drove its legs. A reactor core throbbed behind its spine, venting radioactive smoke through exhausts fashioned into snarling faces. Its right arm ended in a power claw large enough to crush a battle tank. Its left carried a rotary cannon fed by belts of shells dragged along by grots. The war boss emerged through a collapsing hab block. Each step broke the street. Orcs followed in their thousands, drawn by the scent of strength and the promise of spectacle. They filled windows, rooftops, and avenues. Their weapons lowered as they saw the winged warrior standing before their master. Skullkrumper's amplified voice rolled through the ruins. "Dis golden git's mine." The surrounding orcs roared approval. Sanguinius turned to face him. The war boss's cannon began to spin. Sanguinius could have killed him before the barrels completed their first revolution. He saw 8 ways to open the mega armor. He saw where the stolen reactor would overload, where the hydraulic feeds passed beneath the plates, where the alien spine met the base of its skull. He did none of them. The rotary cannon fired. Sanguinius raised one wing. Shells struck feathers and burst. Fire consumed him. Explosive impacts drove him backward through the mud. Torn feathers filled the air. The orcs laughed. Skullkrumper charged. Sanguinius lowered his wing and stood waiting. Seth understood first. He wants them watching. The war boss swung its power claw. Sanguinius allowed the blow to land. The weapon struck his chest with enough force to overturn a super-heavy tank. The ground beneath him collapsed. A shockwave threw corpses and rubble across the avenue. Flesh-tearers locked their boots to the broken street. Orcs fell from rooftops. For a moment, Sanguinius disappeared beneath dust and fire. Skullcrumper raised its claw. The great angel remained standing. Blood ran from a shallow wound across his chest. Nothing more. The orcs stopped laughing. Sanguinius looked down at the blood. He touched it with 2 fingers, as though reacquainting himself with the substance. Then he looked at the war boss. "You required a miracle," he said, "before you could comprehend fear." He moved. The blade and carmine took the rotary cannon above its ammunition feed. Sanguinius caught the severed weapon and drove it into the war boss's knee. Metal buckled. Skullcrumper lurched. Sanguinius seized the lower tusks jutting from the alien's mouth. The war boss tried to close its jaws. Sanguinius pulled. The mandible tore free. Skin split to the ears. Teeth and fragments of gum sprayed across the armor. The war boss's tongue flopped over the ruin of its throat as black blood poured down its chest. Its scream emerged as a bubbling animal noise. Sanguinius caught the power claw with both hands. He braced one foot against the war boss's torso and wrenched the weapon from its mounting. Cables tore loose. Hydraulic fluid erupted. The alien's arm came away at the shoulder, carrying meat, bone, and sections of mega armor with it. Skullcrumper fell to one knee. Sanguinius reversed the broken claw. He drove it through the war boss's chest. The claw punched through night plate, orc hide, and the reactor assembly behind. Its blades emerged from the war boss's back, carrying chunks of spine and pulped organs. The reactor coughed sparks, but did not detonate. Sanguinius lifted the corpse above his head. The war boss weighed several tons in its armor. The great angel held it aloft, as though it were an executioner's trophy. The orc army watched. 1,000,000 brutish minds encountered the same impossible truth. Their strongest had struck the golden warrior. Their strongest had failed. Sanguinius cast the corpse down. It struck the avenue hard enough to break open, spilling entrails, mechanical fluids, and reactor coolant through the ruptured plates. The nearest orcs backed away. Sanguinius pointed the blade and carmine toward them. "Run!" They ran. Not all of them. Many charged because they were orcs, and the promise of violence outweighed thought. The flesh-tearers met them with chain blades and bolt fire, but others fled. Seth ignited his eviscerator and moved to pursue. "Leave them," Sanguinius said. The command did not pass through the Vox. It needed no augmentation. Every warrior heard it. Seth turned. "They will return with more." "Yes." "Then we kill them now." "No." The Primarch watched the fleeing mobs disappear into the smoke. "They will carry what they have seen. Fear will travel faster than their machines. By nightfall, every greenskin from here to the equatorial trench will know that Gorzag Skullcrumper died without drawing more than a mouthful of my blood." Seth studied him. The face was beautiful. The eyes were not. "You would use terror. I would use victory." An orbital warning tone sounded across the Vox. Dante's voice followed. "All surface formations withdraw from designated bombardment sectors. Fleet Command is suspending unrestricted fire until Imperial positions are corrected." Sanguinius looked toward the poisoned sky. "No." The single word crossed every Blood Angel's channel. A silence followed. Dante spoke again from the blade of vengeance. "Identify yourself. You know me. I know what you resemble." Sanguinius almost smiled. "Commander Dante, Lord Regent of the Imperium beyond the Rift, Master of the Blood Angels. You have carried burdens that should have broken a younger soul." Seth heard Dante's breath catch across the channel. Sanguinius looked east, through walls and smoke, through kilometers of ground and fortress foundations. "The orcs have breached the sub-levels beneath Volcanus. They are moving toward the tertiary Prometheum reserve." Tactical runes appeared upon every functioning helm display. Routes, depths, and estimated enemy progress unfolded in crimson. Dante's voice hardened. That reserve contains enough fuel to ignite the continental pipeline network. It will kill 3 continents. We are calculating evacuation options. Evacuation requires 9 hours. A pause. Sanguinius's gaze became distant. The Orcs will reach the primary detonation chamber in 47 minutes. Millions of Astra Militarum soldiers remain within the bombardment radius. I know. Hospitals are still operating in the lower hives. I know. Then you understand why I have suspended fire. Sanguinius looked upon futures Dante could not see. In one, the fleet waited. In another, regiments withdrew. In another, brave men fought through the tunnels and died 3 chambers short of the reserve. Every path ended in a burning world. Fleet command, Sanguinius said. Prepare lance batteries. Dante's reply was quiet. I cannot confirm your authority. You do not need to. You ask me to murder loyal armies. No, I ask you to obey the truth. The great angel opened a direct channel to the regimental commands within the doomed sectors. His voice passed through trenches, command bunkers, tank interiors, and field hospitals. Soldiers of the Imperium, hear me. Your positions cannot be evacuated. The enemy advances upon a reserve whose destruction will consume 3 continents. I will not purchase your hope with the deaths of billions. Men across the hive belt looked toward the sky. I am Sanguinius. I remember what it is to die for an Imperium that survives by sacrifice. I will not tell you that your deaths are glorious. I will not tell you that they are clean. You have been failed, and I am the hand that must end you. On the blade of vengeance, Dante closed his eyes behind the death mask. Sanguinius gave the order. Fire! The battle barge's lance batteries discharged. Light reached Armageddon before sound. The eastern horizon turned white. Hive towers vanished inside columns of stellar fire. Orc armies, Imperial armor formations, evacuation columns and hospitals ceased to exist. Stone became liquid. Liquid became vapor. The crust rose in a wall of molten ruin. The shockwave traveled outward. Millions died in the first instant. Millions more died beneath collapsing districts, expanding firestorms and rivers of burning promethium. Sanguinius felt each future end as it became the present. He heard commanders finishing prayers. He saw wounded soldiers clasp hands beneath hospital sheets. He saw an Imperial tank crew fire one final shell into the green tide before light consumed them. He did not turn away. The glare filled his eyes. Dante watched him through orbital picked feeds and understood. His father had not found refuge in necessity. He had chosen to remember. The surviving Orcs broke west. Blood Angels' gunships prepared pursuit patterns. Flesh-tearers gathered among the ruins, their engines growling, weapons wet. Sanguinius raised one blood-covered hand. Let them run. Tactical routes changed across the Voxnet. The Orc retreat would carry them through the basalt passes of the western ridge. Space Wolves' packs already held the heights. Salamander's armor waited beneath thermal camouflage in the valley beyond. Imperial artillery had registered every approach. Sanguinius had never seen the modern disposition. He knew it regardless. Transmit to the Sons of Russ, he ordered. The prey enters their jaws. A second channel opened. To the Sons of Vulcan, hold fire until the Orcs commit to the valley. Burn the center. Leave the flanks for the wolves. Acknowledgements returned through the static. Minutes later, the western sky flashed. The sound of distant guns rolled across Vulcanus. The battle was over. Dante descended from the Blade of Vengeance aboard a Thunderhawk, whose hull still bore the heat scars of re-entry. He crossed the glassed ruins alone. Sanguinius waited amid the dead. Dante stopped before him. For 15 centuries, he had worn the face of his father. Now that face looked back. Dante knelt. Sanguinius regarded the golden death mask, its features formed in idealized imitation of his own. His expression held no pride. Rise. Dante remained upon one knee. "My lord." "Rise, Dante." The commander obeyed. Sanguinius placed a blood-covered hand upon his shoulder. The touch was warm through the golden plate. "I remember dying," the Primarch said. "I remember his talons within me. I remember the deck beneath my blood." His fingers tightened. "But I also remember 10,000 years of my sons dying with me." Dante could find no words. Sanguinius looked toward the stars hidden beyond Armageddon's poisoned sky. "Take me home." The blade of vengeance tore itself from the Empyrean beneath a storm of crimson lightning. Its Geller field collapsed with the sound of a cathedral exhaling. Warp fire crawled across the battle barge's armored prow, painting the sculpted angels and gilded reliquaries in colors that had no names in mortal tongues. Then the madness beyond the hull vanished, replaced by the cold black of the Baal system. Dante stood before the Strategium's primary oculus and watched home rise from the darkness. They had not returned alone. Strike cruisers filled the approaches to Baal like blades gathered around an altar. Battle barges moved among them, immense and scarred, their prows bearing winged blood drops, chalices, flensed skulls, broken swords, and the heraldry of chapters scattered across the Imperium. Some formations held rigid station, weapons powered and shields raised. Others advanced in processional lines with cathedral bells tolling through the void. Pilgrim ships crowded the outer anchorage. They had come in rusted transports, merchant hulks, converted ore carriers, and devotional vessels whose hulls were covered in prayers. Several had translated too close to Baal's defense cordon and been destroyed before they answered challenge signals. Their wreckage drifted among the defense platforms, bodies turning slowly between fragments of prayer scroll and devotional gold. Astropathic choirs had screamed the impossible across Imperium Nihilus. "The angel lives." The sons of the blood had answered. Some came to kneel, others came to kill whatever wore their father's face. "Identification runes continue to multiply," said a serf at the augur station. "Angels in carmine, blood drinkers, knights of blood remnants, carmine blades, angels sanguine, disciples of blood, flesh tearers holding beyond the inner moon." "Any weapons locks?" Dante asked. "Hundreds, Lord Regent." "On us?" "On everything." Dante regarded the crowded void. "Then they are behaving wisely." Behind him, Sanguinius approached the oculus. The Primarch wore armor assembled from the reliquaries of the Blade of Vengeance. Artificers had labored without rest during the passage from Armageddon, shaping plate intended for dreadnought sarcophagi and ceremonial statues into a temporary harness worthy of his stature. It was crimson rather than gold, unadorned except for a single blood drop upon the breast. Nothing aboard the battle barge had been made for him. Every corridor was too narrow, every throne was too small. Every warrior who passed him struggled between awe and terror. Sanguinius looked beyond the fleet to Baal. The world of his sons was no longer the world he remembered. Orbital bastions formed an iron crown around the planet. Their surfaces were crowded with lance turrets, torpedo silos, and void shield generators. Refugee habitats clung to them like diseased growths, built from salvaged hulls and pressurized scrap. Beyond them turned the scarred moons, their surfaces marked by fortress monasteries, gun emplacements, and the black wounds left by the Tyrannid invasion. Baal itself was a red-brown sphere veiled in dust. Sanguinius saw the rebuilt Arx Angelicum. He saw walls raised over the bones of devoured defenders. He saw deserts where the dead had been fused into glass by plasma fire and bioacid. He saw processional roads lined with monuments to his sacrifice. His face hardened. "What have they made of this place?" he asked. Dante heard no anger in the question. That made it worse. "A fortress," he said. "A sanctuary. A seat of command. A tomb." The word passed quietly through the Strategium. The battle barge descended beneath escort. Thunderhawks and storm ravens formed around it, while defense platforms rotated their batteries away by reluctant degrees. Below, the Arx Angelicum opened its landing vaults. Sanguinius saw statues as they crossed the fortress. There were thousands. He stood in marble with his wings raised in benediction. He knelt in gold before the emperor. He smiled down upon warriors and pilgrims with a serenity he had never possessed in life. In the great hall of martyrs, an immense sculpture showed him lying peacefully upon the deck of the vengeful spirit, eyes closed, hands resting upon his breast. Sanguinius stopped before it. Dante halted beside him. Hundreds of chapter masters, captains, chaplains, and honor guards waited beyond the gates of the hall. The sculptor had no witness, Dante said. No. Sanguinius stared at the marble face. Horus broke my legs before he opened my breast. One wing was torn almost from my back. I drowned in my own blood while he spoke of love. His hand touched the statue's smooth cheek. There was no peace in it. His fingers closed. The marble head broke from the body and shattered across the floor. None of the waiting warriors spoke. Sanguinius stepped over the fragments and entered the hall. The descendants of his legion filled the chamber in ranks of red, black, bone, and gold. Some wore armor polished to ceremonial brilliance. Others carried the scars of campaigns fought without resupply, their plate patched with iron and oath parchment. Death masks watched from among bare faces marked by ritual scars, blood-drinking rites, and the beginnings of mutation. Dante walked before them. He removed his helm. The face beneath was ancient, pale and drawn tight across his skull. No statue showed the cost of his years. No icon recorded the exhaustion he carried into every war. He knelt. "My father," Dante said, "I return to you command of the Blood Angels. I return the regency of Imperium Nihilus. These burdens were held in trust. They are yours." Armor struck stone as the assembled sons of Sanguinius knelt with him. Not all. Gabriel Seth remained standing at the rear of the hall. Sanguinius looked first at Dante, then at the chapters. "Rise." No one moved. His voice deepened. "Rise." They obeyed. Sanguinius descended from the dais until he stood before Dante. "You endured for 15 centuries, while better men became names upon walls. You commanded when hope was a resource more precious than ammunition. You held this realm together while the light of terror was hidden from you." Dante lowered his gaze. "I did what duty demanded. As did I once." Sanguinius looked across the hall. A dead father does not return from legend and steal the authority his son earned in blood. Dante remains master of the Blood Angels. Dante remains Lord Regent. His word bears my sanction. Murmurs moved through the assembled warriors. Some sounded relieved, others did not. Hours later, within a chamber sealed against listening devices and psychic intrusion, Sanguinius stood over a hololithic projection of Imperium Nihilus. "Prepare every military resource under your authority," he told Dante. The Lord Regent studied him. "You refused command. I refused a crown. You intend war. I have returned to a galaxy divided by a wound in reality. My sons are scattered, their curse altered, and someone possessed the knowledge to reach into our blood from across the stars." Sanguinius placed one hand within the projection. Systems burned across his palm. "Gather the fleets, empty the armories, count every bolt shell, every gene seed reserve, every functioning gunship, and every warrior capable of bearing arms." Dante's exhausted eyes narrowed. For what purpose? Sanguinius looked toward the sealed door. "To discover whether my resurrection was an accident." Mephiston waited in the apothecarium beneath the Arx Angelicum. The chamber had been prepared as a place of examination, though every instrument within it seemed primitive beside the being seated at its center. Auspex veins surrounded Sanguinius. Mechanized needles drew blood from his arm. Psi-reactive crystals hung above him in concentric circles, trembling whenever his thoughts moved too near their surfaces. Brother Corbulo watched the gene readings in silence. Mephiston entered the Primarch's mind. He did not force his way. Sanguinius permitted him. Memory opened around the chief librarian. He saw the chambers of the Red Tier before the heresy. He heard Azkaelon arguing with Ralderon over deployment doctrines no archive preserved. He saw sealed vaults beneath Mount Seraph, containing weapons forged before the Legion had been reunited with its father. Sanguinius spoke names. Arven Skirn died at Tegar Pentarus. His bones are not in the Reliquary of Heroes. The sarcophagus contains the remains of his equerry. An apothecary checked the record. The seal was broken. The bones within belonged to a mortal. Captain Maiden did not fall defending the western gate at Cygnus, Sanguinius continued. He was executed for drinking from the dead after I forbade the old rites. The official history was altered to protect the Legion's honor. Mephiston felt the confession strike the gathered warriors harder than any accusation. Sanguinius turned his head. Honor guarded by lies becomes vanity. The gene readings changed. Across the apothecarian, preservation caskets began sounding alarms. Hundreds of progenoid glands floated within nutrient fluid behind crystal panes. Each had been harvested from a dead blood angel or a son of a successor chapter. They moved. At first, Mephiston thought the fluid had been disturbed. Then he heard them. A pulse. Another. Every gene seed organ in the chamber contracted in unison, beating like hearts awakened inside their vessels. Corbulo stared at the caskets. That is impossible. Sanguinius watched the organs answer his presence. I have learned to distrust that word. The examination lasted until Baal's sun sank behind the fortress walls. No test proved deception. No test proved resurrection. Sanguinius possessed the blood, memories, and psychic imprint of the Primarch. He also carried something else, something woven through every son who had screamed during the Angelbane pulse. Astorath awaited them at the Tower of the Lost. The High Chaplain wore black armor. The executioner's axe rested across his shoulders, its blade covered in tightly bound scripture. His face was as severe as a funeral carving. My lord, he said, bowing. You kill them, Sanguinius replied. I grant peace when no other mercy remains. How many? Astorath did not pretend ignorance. More than I can remember. The tower's doors opened. The screaming reached them at once. Thousands of voices howled behind adamantine portals. Chains rattled. Fists struck walls thick enough to withstand tank fire. Every prisoner believed himself upon the vengeful spirit. Everyone saw Horus in the faces of jailers, chaplains, and brothers. Sanguinius entered. The first row of cells fell silent, then the second. Silence traveled through the tower like a blade drawn across a throat. One voice after another ceased, until nothing remained but the hum of stasis generators and the distant beat of mechanisms buried beneath the fortress. Astorath stopped walking. In all the years I have served, he whispered, this place has never known silence. Sanguinius approached a cell. The viewing slit was closed. He placed his palm against the door. A voice came from within. Father, Astorath stepped forward. Do not open it. Sanguinius released the seals. The door withdrew. A blood angel stood inside, naked except for chains around his wrists and throat. His body was covered in wounds inflicted by his own hands. Fingernails had torn trenches through his chest. Dried blood blackened his mouth. He looked upon Sanguinius. Recognition returned to his eyes. My lord, he sobbed. He fell to his knees. I saw you die. Sanguinius entered the cell. The warrior pressed his forehead to the Primarch's hand and wept. For one heartbeat, he was himself. Then the rage moved. Mephiston saw it pass between them. A black tide poured from the prisoner's soul and entered Sanguinius through the touch. The chained warrior collapsed, suddenly empty, while the Primarch convulsed. Sanguinius struck the wall. Adamantine folded beneath his fist. He turned upon Astorath. The High Chaplain raised the executioner's axe as Sanguinius crossed the cell. The Primarch seized him by the throat and drove him through the opposite wall. Stone and metal burst outward. Astorath's armor cracked beneath Sanguinius's fingers. His face changed. Beauty remained, but it became the beauty of a weapon drawn from its sheath. Mephiston reached for his mind and found only blood. Sanguinius lifted Astarath from the floor. The chaplain's boots struck the wall. "Do it," Astarath rasped. "If you are lost, I will do what I was made to do." The words reached him. Sanguinius froze. His fingers opened. Astarath fell amid the rubble. The Primarch staggered back. Blood ran from his nose and mouth. Within the cell, the formerly afflicted warrior looked around in terror, lucid for the first time in centuries. Mephiston studied them both. "The curse has not ended," he said. "No," Sanguinius answered. He looked down at his trembling hands. "It has found a new path." Some of the lost awakened from the death vision when they sensed their father living. Others remained consumed, but their madness changed. They no longer fought an imagined Horus. They felt Sanguinius's anger and gave it form. They became coherent. They remembered names. They understood doors, weapons, formations, and commands. Astarath regarded the silent cells around them. "They are more dangerous now." Sanguinius looked into the darkness beyond the open portal. "So am I." The gathering resumed beneath the fortress. Gabriel Seth waited before the assembled chapter masters, with Bloodreaver resting across his shoulders. When Sanguinius entered, every warrior knelt. Seth did not. Dante's hand moved toward his axe. Sanguinius raised one finger. "Speak," the Primarch said. Seth's scarred face held no apology. "The warp shaped this. You believe me false. I believe beauty has deceived the Imperium before. Fulgrim was beautiful. Horus was beloved. Gods wear whatever faces make men kneel." The chamber tightened around the words. "You carry our blood," Seth continued. "You carry our memories. That proves only that the enemy learned where to cut." Sanguinius approached him. "Strike me." Seth's eyes narrowed. "Do not mock me. Strike me, Gabriel." Bloodreaver's motor roared. Seth moved without warning. The eviscerator crossed the space between them and buried its teeth in Sanguinius's shoulder. Flesh opened. Bone splintered. Blood sprayed across Seth's face. The Primarch did not retreat. He caught the chain blade beneath one arm, twisted, and tore it from Seth's hands. His other fist struck the chapter master in the chest. Seth flew across the chamber. He hit a pillar hard enough to crack it and fell to one knee, coughing blood. Sanguinius pulled Bloodreaver from his shoulder. The wound began closing around exposed bone. "You were right to doubt," he said. He returned the weapon hilt first. But doubt without discipline is merely another appetite. A chapter master moved behind Dante. Mephiston sensed the corruption an instant too late. The warrior drew a plasma pistol and fired. Sanguinius caught his wrist before the trigger completed its travel. He crushed the forearm until armor, bone, and weapon fused together. The chapter master screamed and drove a combat blade toward Dante's throat. Sanguinius opened the attacker's breastplate with his bare hands. Ceramite split. Ribs broke outward. The Primarch reached into the warrior's chest and tore free both hearts together, connected by ropes of vessels and blackened tissue. The chapter master remained upright for several seconds. Then he collapsed. Sanguinius held the organs before the assembled sons of his blood. Dark veins pulsed across them in patterns that resembled writing. "Angel-bane corruption," Mephiston said. Astarath approached. "This should be concealed until his chapter can be judged." "No." Sanguinius crushed the hearts. Blood ran between his fingers. "Hidden shame fed the floor for 10,000 years. We buried weakness beneath ritual and called secrecy honor." He looked across the kneeling warriors. No more. The reliquary of Amit lay deeper than the Tower of the Lost. Its doors opened only for Dante, Astarath, and the Master of the Blood Angels. Within rested weapons, armor, and bones attributed to the earliest days of the Legion. Some were genuine. Others had become sacred through belief alone. At the chamber's center stood the spear of Telesto. Sanguinius approached it slowly. The weapon rested upright within a column of stasis light. Its blade was shaped like a crimson teardrop. Gold wings formed the guard beneath it. Dante released the field. Sanguinius closed his hand around the haft. The spear awakened. Red-gold light flooded the reliquary. Dust rose from ancient bones. Armor displays ignited within sealed alcoves. Every blood drop carved into the walls shone as though filled with fire. The Primarch turned. His temporary armor was stained by battle. One wing bore dried orc blood. His shoulder still showed the wound cut by Bloodreaver. Yet when he spoke, the entire fortress heard him. "Send word to every son of my blood." Across Baal, Astropath screamed his command into the void. "Call the battle barges from their patrols. Call the strike cruisers from their hunts. Wake the entombed. Arm the lost. Open the vaults, and count the dead who can still kill." The spear of Telesto burned in his grip. The darkness beyond the rift has fed upon mankind long enough. Sanguinius looked upon Dante, Mephiston, Astarath, and the gathered masters of his divided lineage. Muster the blood. Robut Guilliman saw the danger before he saw his brother. Baal hung beyond the armored panes of the Macragga's honor, a wounded sphere wrapped in fortress stations, refugee hulks and warships. The vessels of the Blood Angel's lineage crowded the system in numbers not seen since the Great Crusade. Battle barges held position above the Red World, with their bombardment cannon loaded. Strike cruisers moved through overlapping patrol patterns, their attack craft armed and already in the void. They had not assembled as chapters, they had assembled as blood. That distinction occupied Guilliman more than the weapons trained upon his flagship. Data scrolled across the command throne's hololithic field. Fleet strengths, chapter dispositions, astropathic testimony, genetic analyses transmitted from Baal, reports from Armageddon describing a winged figure who had broken an orc battle wagon with his body, transformed a relic blade by touch, and ordered the deaths of millions of Imperial soldiers to prevent a planetary catastrophe. Every account agreed. Sanguinius lived. Guilliman had learned to distrust agreement. Adeptus Custodes stood around the command dais, silent in auramite plate. Their guardian spears remained upright, but the bolt mechanisms within them were active. Behind them waited envoys of the Senatorum Imperialis, robed men carrying seals of office older than many worlds. An astropathic delegation occupied a warded alcove, each psyker hooded and chained to a restraint throne in case the being upon Baal reached through them. To a mortal commander, Sanguinius's return would have been a miracle. To Guilliman, it was a crisis measured in armies, faith, and civil obedience. The strategic benefit was incalculable. A loyal Primarch in Imperium Nihilus could rally worlds that had forgotten Terra's light. The Blood Angels and their successors would fight with renewed purpose. The legends surrounding Sanguinius surpassed those of almost every other son of the Emperor. That was precisely the danger. Mankind did not require proof to worship. It required only desperation. Guilliman rose from the throne. "Signal Baal," he ordered. "Inform Lord Regent Dante that I will descend with the custodian observers and no more than one company of honor guard." A Senatorum envoy bowed. "Lord Commander, the security protocols approved by the High Lords require—" "The High Lords are not here. My lord, should the entity prove hostile, then 1,000 additional warriors will not save you." The envoy lowered his head. Guilliman looked again at Baal. Its defense stations turned slowly beneath the light of its sun, their gun ports dark and waiting. "Transmit a second message. No vessel is to power weapons without my direct authority." The fleet master hesitated. "Lord Commander, several Blood Angel ships have already fixed targeting solutions upon us." "I am aware. What reply shall we make?" "None." Guilliman descended to Baal beneath an escort of stormbirds and gunships, bearing the cobalt and gold of Macragga. The Arx Angelicum opened before them, its landing vaults bright with guiding beacons and devotional flame. The fortress was a monument to survival. Tyrannid damage remained visible beneath reconstruction. Walls bore seams where alien acids had eaten through stone. Defense towers had been raised over fields of fused bone. Servitors labored among statues, replacing shattered wings and repainting blood drops upon the armor of saints. Dante waited within the landing court. The ancient chapter master wore the death mask of Sanguinius. Behind him stood Mephiston, Astorath, and captains of the Blood Angels. None had brought ceremonial weapons. Every blade was sharpened. Every firearm was loaded. Guilliman descended the ramp. Dante bowed. "My Lord Regent." Guilliman regarded him for a long moment. "You have used that title to address another." "I have." "And does he accept it?" "No." That answer relieved Guilliman less than it should have. "Where is he?" Dante turned toward the fortress. "Waiting for our brother." Guilliman stopped. "Our brother?" The air changed, not with psychic pressure, not with the thunder of engines or the discharge of weapons. The stone beneath the landing court darkened as shadows gathered between pillars. A wind carrying the scent of rain and ancient forests moved across Baal's dry air. Leaves appeared where no tree had ever grown, spinning upon currents invisible to mortal eyes. A path opened through the shadow. Lionel Johnson stepped from it. He wore dark green plate marked by battle damage, his cloak torn and stained by worlds Guilliman did not know. The lion sword hung at his side. A company of silent warriors followed him from the impossible forest, their armor bearing broken heraldry and marks of old Caliban concealed beneath newer colors, redeemed sons. The lion looked at Guilliman only once. Robut. Brother. That was all. His attention had already passed beyond them. Sanguinius entered the court. For a heartbeat, the fortress ceased to exist for Guilliman. He saw the angel as he had been before terror. White wings, pale features, a face shaped for statues, but never made gentle by them. Temporary crimson armor covered his body, its plates newly forged and too plain for the being within them. The spear of Telesto rested in his hand. The lion stood motionless. Sanguinius stopped before him. Neither spoke. The lion raised one gauntleted hand and touched Sanguinius's face. His fingers pressed against cheek and jaw, testing warmth, flesh, and bone. Sanguinius did not move. The lion's expression altered by less than a mortal smile. It was enough. He pulled Sanguinius into an embrace. The impact of their armor cracked the flagstones beneath their feet. The lion held him with the force of a warrior, preventing a body from being torn away by floodwater. One of Sanguinius's wings folded around his brother's shoulders. Guilliman remembered terror. He remembered standing before an empty throne after learning that Sanguinius was dead. He remembered the lion's rage when grief had found no other shape. Now the first Primarch released the ninth and stepped back. "I saw your corpse," the lion said. "So did I." The lion's hand remained upon Sanguinius's shoulder. "You were dead. I remain uncertain whether that condition ended." Only then did Sanguinius look toward Guilliman. No embrace came. Guilliman had not expected one. "Sanguinius, Robute, I must ask you questions." The faintest weariness touched the angel's face. "Of course you must." They entered the Arx Angelicum beneath the eyes of warriors, serfs, and custodians. Word of the three Primarchs' presence traveled faster than any official decree. Bells began to sound throughout the fortress. Beyond the walls, pilgrims gathered in such numbers that defense servitors turned their weapons toward the crowds. The council chamber lay beneath layers of adamantium, hexagrammic wards, and psychic null shielding. Astropathic transmission was impossible within it. No servitor remained inside. No recording device functioned. Sanguinius stood at one end of a stone table. The lion remained near the door, as though councils were battlefields, and every entrance required guarding. Gilliman began without ceremony. "What did you say to me upon Macraga, after we learned the ruin storm had severed us from terror?" Sanguinius answered immediately. "That certainty was the armor-pride war when fear wished to remain hidden." Gilliman's jaw tightened. "What did the lion say when you accepted the throne of Imperium Secundus?" "That he would serve the Imperium, not a crown. Then he spent 3 days refusing to enter the throne room because he believed the doors were an insult." The lion looked at Gilliman. They were. Sanguinius's mouth almost curved. Gilliman continued. "During the siege, what did you tell me in your final message?" Sanguinius's expression emptied. "That I did not expect to see you again, that you were not to blame for arriving too late, that you would blame yourself regardless." The words struck harder than Gilliman had prepared for. He forced himself onward. "What did our father say when he sent you to the vengeful spirit?" "He did not send me." Silence filled the chamber. Sanguinius leaned upon the spear of Telesto. "I went because I had seen my death. I believed it purchased Horus's defeat. Our father allowed me to believe the choice was mine." Gilliman studied him. The answers were correct. The memories were correct. The bitterness was possible. None of it proved the soul before him belonged to the brother who had died. Sanguinius watched the calculation pass across his face. "Have you come to welcome me?" he asked, "or to audit a political complication?" The cruelty lay in its accuracy. Gilliman did not look away. "Both." The lion exhaled through his nose. At least one of them approved of the answer. Gilliman activated the table. The darkness above it filled with a representation of the galaxy, divided by the burning wound of the Great Rift. Sanguinius stared at it. "The cicatrix maledictum," Gilliman said. "It divides the Imperium. Terror remains in Sanctus. Baal and most of the worlds under Dante's regency lie in Nihilus." The projection expanded. War zones multiplied. Icons marked the progress of the Indomitus Crusade, the advance of Chaos fleets, awakening tomb worlds and devoured systems. Gilliman spoke of the centuries since his own return, of the Primaris project, of Belisarius Cawl and the new breed of Adeptus Astartes, of the Crusade fleets sent to reinforce dying chapters, of institutions preserved beyond all reason because removing them threatened collapse. Sanguinius listened without interruption. Then Gilliman explained the ecclesiarchy. The angel's wings shifted behind him. They worship him. It was not a question. Yes. Our father denied divinity. He did. He burned worlds to destroy faith. He did. And now the Imperium murders those who deny that he is a god. Gilliman looked into the burning galaxy. Yes. Sanguinius turned away from the table. Why? Because 10,000 years have passed. That is not an answer. It is the only answer that matters. Faith became law. Law became institution. Institution became the structure holding 1,000,000 worlds together. Tear it away in a generation, and the Imperium does not become enlightened. It disintegrates. Sanguinius looked toward the lion. "And you accept this?" "I accept bolters that fire." "That was not what I asked." "It is the answer you have." The lion stepped closer to the hololith. "Mankind needs weapons more than it needs our approval of its philosophy." Sanguinius stared at the burning image of terror. "Our father would despise this." Gilliman's voice lowered. "Our father is not governing it." A chime sounded beyond the sealed door. Dante consulted a wrist display. The ecclesiarchal envoys request admission. "No," Sanguinius said. "They bear the authority of the Senatorum Imperialis. They may bear it elsewhere." Dante's face remained controlled. "They intend to proclaim you the reborn archangel of the Emperor." Sanguinius turned toward the banners hanging along the council chamber walls. Each bore his image, winged and radiant above kneeling warriors. "Remove those." No one moved. Sanguinius pointed the spear of Telesto toward the nearest banner. "My likeness, my blood, My martyrdom. Remove them. Chapter serfs entered and stripped the devotional cloth from the walls. The chamber became bare stone. Guilliman watched his brother. You cannot abolish what they believe. I can refuse to reward it. Faith has power in the warp. Sanguinius looked at him. I felt it when I returned. 10,000 years of prayers pressed into a shape and called my name. Then you understand why it cannot simply be destroyed. I understand it is a weapon. The angel's gaze hardened. I despise many weapons. I still use them. The admission unsettled Guilliman more than rejection would have. He closed the galactic projection. There remains the matter of verification. Mephiston stood behind Dante, unmoving. Genetic tests have been conducted, the chief librarian said. Psychic and mnemonic examinations also. By his sons. By those most qualified. By those most vulnerable. Blood Angel's officers stiffened. Guilliman continued. I propose examination by the Adeptus Custodes, Mechanicus Genitors, and sanctioned psychers independent of the 9th bloodline. Until that process is complete, Sanguinius should remain within the Arx Angelicum under controlled confinement. The silence that followed was immediate and absolute. Across the Baal system, Blood Angel's vessels powered weapons. Warning runes appeared upon Guilliman's gauntlet display. Battle barges acquired targeting solutions against the Macragge's honor. Strike cruisers moved to block the translation corridors. The Lion's warriors responded before the Dark Angel's fleet received orders. Void shields rose, torpedo tubes opened, gunships launched from hidden bays. Dante's face lost what little color it possessed. You would imprison him, Sanguinius said, until we know what returned. There will be no cage. Then give me an alternative. The Lion's hand settled upon the hilt of his sword. You are both running out of alternatives. Guilliman ignored him. The Imperium cannot survive another Horus. Sanguinius's wings spread. And so you would begin another heresy to prevent one? The chamber doors opened. Custodians entered with guardian spears leveled. Blood Angels drew weapons. Dark Angels turned toward both sides. Dante stepped between the Primarchs. He was ancient, diminished, and smaller than any of them. He stood there regardless. Enough. No one obeyed. Dante removed the death mask of Sanguinius and let it fall upon the table. Look at what stands beyond these walls. Sons of the Emperor preparing to fire upon sons of the Emperor while the great rift devours worlds. Guilliman stared at him. Stand aside. No. The refusal carried 15 centuries of command. Who profits from this? Dante demanded. Abaddon, the gods, every Xenos beast feeding upon the dark. They need not defeat us if 3 brothers cannot share a room without reaching for blades. The Lion looked toward Sanguinius. Hesitation is a luxury. Sanguinius set the spear of Telesto against the table. Then he tore open the seals at the throat of his armor. Crimson plate parted, exposing pale flesh. A scar ran across his chest, where Gorzag's skull crumper had struck him. Smaller wounds remained from Armageddon and from Blood Reaver. He walked to Guilliman. If you believe I am false, kill me. Guilliman did not move. Sanguinius took his brother's hand and placed it against his throat. You have the strength. Break my neck before the thing wearing your brother's face can poison mankind. Guilliman felt a pulse beneath his palm. Warm. Living. Do it now, Sanguinius said, or never speak to me of confinement again. Guilliman remembered a throne upon Macragge. He remembered wings in the light. He remembered arriving too late to Terra and finding only the consequences of death. His hand fell. The Lion's voice cut through the chamber. Then the matter is decided. We trust him until he gives us cause to kill him. It was not comfort. From the Lion, it was almost love. The council continued until Baal's sun rose over the fortress. They built a compromise from titles, limits, and mutual suspicion. Guilliman remained Imperial Regent and Lord Commander of the Imperium's armies. Dante remained Lord Regent of Imperium Nihilus, his authority confirmed by 2 returned Primarchs and the father whose face he had worn. Sanguinius would not reclaim formal command of every chapter descended from his gene line. The Legiones Astartes would not be reborn by decree. He accepted another title, Lord of the Sanguinary Host. The host would be a crusade formation, temporary in law, unified in command, and assembled for war beyond the Great Rift. Every chapter retained its name. Every chapter retained its master. Every chapter would obey Sanguinius when the crusade began. The distinction satisfied no one. That was why Guilliman accepted it. Far beyond Baal, the vengeful spirit moved through the immaterium like a blade inside a wound. Abaddon stood within the command sanctum, while chained astropaths vomited blood across the deck. A Black Legion sorcerer knelt before him, armor smoking from the strain of transmission. "It is confirmed, War Master." Abaddon looked upon a hololithic image taken from Armageddon. White wings, a spear of red-gold fire, the face Horus had loved and murdered. "The Angelbane engine failed," the sorcerer said. Abaddon laughed once. The sound was quiet. That frightened the warriors around him more than rage. "Failed?" He reached out and closed the talon of Horus around the image. The projection broke across the ancient claws. "We sought to drown the sons in the father's death. Instead, we pulled the father from their blood." The sorcerer lowered his head. "Shall those responsible be executed?" "No." Abaddon turned toward the darkness beyond the sanctum, where the vengeful spirit remembered every drop of blood spilled within its halls. "Bring me the surviving servants of Vashtor. Open the gene vaults. Strip every Blood Angel prisoner we possess." "For what purpose, War Master?" The talon flexed. The first engine awakened him. Abaddon smiled. "The second will make him remember." The sons of Sanguinius came to Baal beneath banners that had not flown together since the days when the legions still marched. They came through the wounded dark of Imperium Nihilus in fleets scarred by isolation, starvation, and war. Strike cruisers translated from the Empyrean, with armor blackened by unrepaired lance strikes. Battle barges arrived trailing vapor from ruptured drives. Frigates limped behind them on emergency thrust, while chapter serfs chanted litanies over reactors that should have failed centuries before. Some came in splendor. The blood drinkers entered the system in perfect formation, their vessels armored in crimson and gold, every prow marked with the chalice and the blood drop. The angels in carmine arrived behind ranks of escort craft, polished until their hulls reflected Baal's red sun. Sanguinary priests stood upon observation decks with their helms removed, weeping as the Arx Angelicum filled their screens. Others came like carrion hunters. The most savage successors bore trophies upon their armor. Chains of orc teeth hung beside strips of cured Xenos hide. Human skulls taken from traitors had been wired into jump packs and weapon casings. Their ships displayed no devotional illumination. They moved through the void with gun decks open, their machine spirits snarling challenge codes at every vessel that approached. Secretive brotherhoods came behind sealed Vox protocols and false transponder readings. Some refused to remove their helms, even before Dante. Some kept their honor guards beneath robes that concealed misshapen limbs or distended armor plates. A few carried the floor so visibly that their fangs protruded beneath their rebreather grills, and their skin had become the color of corpses drained upon an altar. There were broken chapters, too. One battle barge entered the system carrying fewer than 100 warriors. Its armory held more empty plate than living battle brothers. Another arrived with no functioning gunships and only half a company fit to fight. Its chapter master was interred within a dreadnought sarcophagus, whose legs had been replaced by industrial loading treads. All came because the blood had called. Dante watched them assemble from the upper command vault of the Arx Angelicum. The hololithic sphere above the chamber had ceased to display individual ships. There were too many. Entire fleet elements existed as blocks of colored light. Shipping lanes filled the spaces between Baal, Baal Secundus, and the outer defense line. Every translation point was crowded with incoming vessels waiting for clearance. The muster had already become larger than any surviving command structure had been designed to govern. 7 successor fleets have refused central ammunition accounting, said the master of logistics. Dante did not turn from the hololith. Why? 3 cite chapter sovereignty. 2 claim their bolt shell manufactoria are sanctified against inspection. 1 has no records. And the 7th? The mortal officer lowered his eyes. They threatened to eat the auditors. Send flesh-tearers to count their magazines. The officer hesitated. My lord. They will understand one another. The logistics master bowed and withdrew. Reports continued without mercy. Gene seed vaults required transfer to hardened storage. Plasma reactors demanded replacement containment seals. Artificer workshops had consumed Baal's reserves of adamantium filament within 4 days. Ceramite production could not match projected battle damage. Blood stores had fallen below acceptable levels because many successor chapters relied upon rites Dante had spent centuries refusing to examine too closely. Every bolter required shells. Every suit of power armor required reactor maintenance, fiber bundle replacement, joint lubrication, sealant, sacred oils, and the labor of armorers trained across generations. Every battle brother required nutrient paste, purified blood, ammunition, and transport. Behind the Adeptus Astartes came their mortal foundations. Chapter serfs, armsmen, pilots, navigators, astropaths, mechanicus engineers, medici staff, administratum adepts, bonded labor gangs, servitors grown without tongues because speech had no value in the void docks. Billions of mortal lives moved around the host. Dante watched them become quantities. Food stocks measured in megatons. Water reclamation measured in acceptable failure rates. Fuel counted by the moon-sized tanker. Mortal casualties estimated before the crusade had left Baal. The Imperium called such things logistics. Dante had learned long ago that logistics was the discipline of deciding who would starve first. Sanguinius stood beside him. The Primarch had refused a command throne. He remained on his feet as data flowed around him, one hand resting upon the spear of Telesto. The Force cannot remain here, Dante said. Baal cannot sustain it. It will not. We have not completed integration. We never will. Dante turned toward his father. Then what do you intend? Sanguinius reached into the hololithic sphere. Fleet groups separated beneath his fingers. I will not rebuild the Legion. Relief moved through the chamber. It was visible even among warriors trained to conceal thought. Sanguinius saw it. You fear Guilliman's judgment. No, said Dante. I fear what we would become. The Primarch regarded him. Good. He drew the first group of vessels into a spear-shaped formation. The chapters remain chapters. Their names, rights, and masters endure. But sovereignty cannot be permitted to become paralysis. For the duration of this crusade, they will be assigned by purpose. New sigils appeared. The first sanguinary host will conduct orbital assault and decapitation strikes. Sanguinary Guard, jump pack companies, vanguard formations, and the fastest gunships. A second group formed beneath it. The second will break armored lines, Baal predators, repulsor formations, land raiders, dreadnought maniples, and heavy infantry. A third. The third will hunt in the void, strike cruisers, boarding companies, assault rams, and every vessel whose master understands that an enemy ship is merely a fortress without ground beneath it. More groups emerged. Reconnaissance hosts, siege reduction hosts, civilian extraction hosts, their existence greeted by visible confusion among several chapter representatives. A final sigil appeared in black. The lost will form their own host, Sanguinius said. Astaroth stood at the far side of the hololith. No. The word carried across the chamber. The High Chaplain did not bow. They are not a formation, he continued. They are the damned. Sanguinius looked toward him. They understand commands now. That does not make them sane. It makes them useful. Asterath's grip tightened upon the haft of the executioner's axe. That reasoning has fed the pyres of every tyrant who believed the cursed could be spent without consequence. Sanguinius's expression did not change. Then oversee them. Asterath said nothing. Watch me as closely as you watch them, the Primarch added. The Death Company had been gathered beneath Baal Secundus in vaults once used to quarantine tyrannid organisms. Lemates walked among them. His Crozius remained active, a black halo of disruption energy around its winged head. Chaplains accompanied him at measured intervals. Behind them waited servitors carrying chains, injector stakes, and bolt pistols loaded with sanctified execution rounds. The lost knelt in ranks. Hundreds wore black armor crossed with red saltires. Some had been restrained within their plate, their gauntlets locked shut, and their helms welded in place. Others bore no chains at all. That disturbed Lemates more. A warrior raised his head as Asterath and Sanguinius entered. "Horus is beyond the western gate," he said. His voice was calm. Another answered from 3 ranks away. "No, the western gate is a feint. He will break the wall beneath the 4th tower." A third warrior looked directly at Sanguinius. "We should sacrifice the mortal armor and retain the reserves for the counterstroke." The words were not random. They were tactical. Lemates moved before the third warrior. "Name yourself." The Blood Angel's helm turned toward him. "I am Sanguinius." "No." The warrior's gauntlets trembled. "I am Brother Kalen of the Crimson Knights." Lucidity lasted 3 heartbeats. Then his voice changed. "I am Sanguinius." Others repeated it, not as a howl, as a declaration. "I am Sanguinius. I am Sanguinius. I am Sanguinius." The words passed through the chamber until hundreds spoke with fragments of one voice. The Primarch stopped among them. The lost became silent. He looked upon warriors who had spent centuries trapped inside the moment of his death. Some believed they wore his face. Others remembered their own identities, while feeling his anger moving through their veins. Their madness had learned discipline. That made it worse. Sanguinius approached Kalen. "What do you see?" "Horus." "Where?" The warrior pointed at nothing. "Everywhere." "Do you see me?" Kalen's breath rasped through his helm grill. "Yes." "Who am I?" "My father." The warrior's fists clenched. "Myself." His head bowed. "The dead." Sanguinius looked toward Asterath. "They will deploy." The High Chaplain's face was carved from disgust. "And when they turn upon our lines, Lemates will direct them." Lemates raised his Crozius. "I will." Asterath glanced at him. "You would trust this?" "I trust no one here." The grim answer pleased neither Primarch nor Chaplain. The Astra Militarum began arriving as the chapter fleets settled into their new formations. Their transports lacked the majesty of Astartes warships. They came in armored bulk carriers, mass conveyance hulks, and ancient troop barges whose holds had been built to transport entire populations. Battleships escorted them. Grand cruisers moved like iron continents through the void. Carriers disgorged interceptor wings in numbers that turned the stars into moving constellations. Mechanicus forge vessels arrived beneath clouds of sensor smoke, vented directly into vacuum. Hospital ships followed, white hulls already stained by previous campaigns. Tank transports carried armored regiments stacked in coffin-like berths. Munitorum barges bore shells, fuel, corpse starch, uniforms, replacement limbs, and body bags. Thousands of smaller craft moved among them like carrion flies around iron cathedrals. The generals assembled before Sanguinius in the Hall of Victories. There were too many names for Dante to retain. Army groups had replaced regiments upon the strategic display. Men became colored blocks. Divisions became fuel requirements. Entire planetary levies appeared beside predicted casualty curves. Sanguinius insisted upon meeting their commanders. One by one, The generals bowed. He asked each the same questions. How many soldiers? How many armor formations? How many days of ammunition? How many wounded could their transports carry? How many casualties before cohesion failed? He spoke to them as men. He judged them as resources. A grey-haired Lord General described an army group containing more than 2 billion soldiers. Sanguinius listened, thanked him for his service, and reassigned 400 million to Dante's relief arm. The Lord General paled. "My lord, those formations have trained together for generations. They will die together if they remain where you place them." Sanguinius adjusted the hololith. "You have treated cohesion as though it were sacred. It is not. Victory is sacred." Dante heard the generals begin to fear him. The fear would improve obedience. That knowledge shamed him, because he found himself grateful. Gabriel Seth entered the chamber without ceremony. Blood Reaver rested upon his shoulder. Dried blood remained between the weapon's teeth, despite 3 cleansings by chapter serfs. "You divide us into instruments," Seth said. The generals withdrew from his path. Sanguinius looked at him. "That is what armies are. You place the angels vermilion beside chapters that would kill them if they knew the truth of their rights. You put carrion eaters under officers who believe restraint makes them noble. I place warriors where they can serve. You believe savagery can be commanded from a hololith." Sanguinius descended from the dais. "I commanded the Revenant Legion before they learned to call themselves angels." Seth bared his teeth. "Then you know what we are. I know what you choose to excuse." The flesh-tearer's expression hardened. "Our brutality is not a disease that can be legislated away. No." Sanguinius stopped before him. "Savagery controlled by purpose is a weapon. Savagery excused as tradition is weakness." Seth's hand tightened around Blood Reaver. "You would make us ashamed of surviving. I would make you ashamed of pretending appetite is strength." For a moment, neither moved. Then Seth gave a low, humorless laugh. "You have been alive for days, and already speak like a father disappointed by sons he abandoned." Every warrior in the hall went still. Sanguinius's wings opened by a fraction. Dante prepared to intervene. The Primarch did not strike. "You are correct," Sanguinius said. The admission robbed Seth of anger more effectively than violence. Sanguinius turned back to the hololith. The Vesperid Reach. A chain of systems appeared beyond the Great Rift, each represented by a pale point of light amid surrounding darkness. 12 inhabited systems, Dante said. Agri-worlds, mining colonies, shrine worlds and fortress stations. Their routes connect several isolated Imperial enclaves. Black Legion warbands have taken the outer worlds, Sanguinius replied. They are not conquering them. Images replaced the map. Slave columns crossing ash plains. Psychers chained into machine frames. Bodies opened upon industrial tables, while gene organs were cut from living prisoners. They are harvesting, Sanguinius said. Flesh, blood, psychic residue, gene seed. Dante saw the shape of the threat. The Angelbane engine. They are rebuilding it. Sanguinius divided the Reach into 3 lines of advance. Dante will command the Central Relief Fleet, break the sieges, restore the fortress worlds, force the enemy to defend what they hope to harvest. A second line burned red. Seth will strike here. The flesh-tearer studied the route. That is the strongest enemy concentration. Yes. You intend me to be seen. I intend you to be impossible to ignore. Attack quickly. Kill loudly. Make them believe the main assault follows you. Seth smiled. At last, the expression suited him. And you? A third route appeared through a region marked by navigator warnings and lost vessel records. Sanguinius looked into the darkness between systems. I will take the Sanguinary Guard through this passage. Dante stared at the route. There is no stable corridor there. There will be. You have seen it? I have seen enough. The answer satisfied no one. The order to depart traveled across Baal. Reactors rose to full output. Docking clamps released. Supply craft fled the lanes as battle barges moved into formation. Astropathic choirs were chained into their sanctums. Navigators opened their third eyes behind screens of leaded glass. The Red Host turned toward the Empyrean. Millions of astropaths screamed as one. Reality split. Geller fields ignited around thousands of vessels. The first ships entered the warp beneath curtains of impossible light. Others followed, entire battle groups vanishing into the wound, while the darkness beyond pressed against their shields. Inside the observation chapel of the Blade of Vengeance, Sanguinius stood before a sealed crystal wall. The warp moved beyond it. Faces formed in the storm. Claws scraped across the outer hull. Vast shapes followed the fleet, their bodies too large for mortal perception to hold. Sanguinius watched them. Something watched back. A face emerged from the tides, noble, mournful, beautiful enough to be trusted. Horus smiled at him from beyond the glass. Orison's wake had once been a shrine world. Pilgrims had crossed half the Vesperid Reach to kneel beneath its alabaster basilicas. Processional roads had wound between hive cities carved into the continental plate, broad enough for 10,000 penitents to walk abreast. Its oceans had been fed with blessed ash. Its manufactorums had forged reliquaries, devotional plate and ammunition, stamped with the names of saints. The Black Legion had improved upon its faith. The Red Host emerged from the warp above a world remade into a sacrificial machine. Continents had been carved with trenches visible from orbit. Human processions filled them, billions of captives chained neck to neck and driven through channels cut into the earth. Blood pumped from the trenches into reservoirs surrounding the principal hives. Manufactorum districts glowed with furnace light as demon engines crawled from assembly vaults, their armor hammered around living bodies. Warp towers rose through the cloud layer. Each had been constructed around captured psychers, fused into iron frameworks. Cables entered their skulls, spines, and opened chests. Their pain was fed into black generators, whose discharge held a wound open above the northern continent. The rift turned in the heavens like an infected eye. Shapes moved within it. Sanguinius stood at the Strategium Oculus aboard the Blade of Vengeance and watched the world's suffering assemble itself into futures. He saw a frontal assault broken against the orbital rings. He saw the Red Host victorious after 11 weeks, too late to prevent the rift from consuming the neighboring systems. He saw Seth burning toward the enemy alone. That future opened. "Transmit to the flesh-tearers," Sanguinius said. "They are to make themselves visible." Dante stood beside the command throne, his death mask concealing whatever answer his face might have given. Seth will appreciate the order. He will misunderstand it as praise. Will he be wrong? Sanguinius looked toward the system's outer reaches. A gas giant turned there beneath storms vast enough to swallow worlds. Lightning crawled across its atmosphere. Electromagnetic turbulence flooded augurs with distortion. Take the central fleet behind the giant. Shut down every non-essential reactor. No astropathic transmission. No active augurs. Dante studied the orbital defense network. You intend the enemy to believe Seth is the main assault. I intend them to believe what they already wish to believe. The flesh-tearers translated openly. Their assault ships entered real space, with drives burning at full output, void shields blazing beneath the strain. They did not form a cautious spearhead. They came as a pack, broadcasting challenge codes, death threats, and the recorded screams of orcs slain upon Armageddon. Gabriel Seth's voice overrode every channel. Sons of the blood, there is meat before us. The flesh-tearers drove toward the primary orbital platforms. Enemy guns opened at once. Lances split the void. Macro shells crossed the darkness in burning lines. One flesh-tearer's escort vanished beneath 3 simultaneous impacts, its shields collapsing an instant before its hull broke apart. Thousands of crew spilled into space amid wreckage and frozen blood. The surviving ships accelerated. Black Legion vessels moved to intercept them. Cruisers emerged from the lee of the defense rings. Raider squadrons descended from high orbit. the largest warships turned their prows away from the gas giant and brought their batteries to bear upon the apparent attack. The enemy commander accepted the bait because contempt made him predictable. Lord Carex Vaughn watched the flesh-tearers approach from the command sanctum of Orison's crown. He had once worn the Eye of Horus upon his pauldron with pride. 10 millennia had worn pride into something harder. His armor was black and gold, swollen around the left shoulder, where the demon bound within his weapon had fused itself to his flesh. Cables entered the back of his skull. His right eye had been replaced by a cluster of ruby lenses that drank tactical data directly from the station. The flesh-tearers displeased him, not because they were dangerous, because they were obvious. "They come like beasts," said the sorcerer beside him. Vaughn watched the red ships burn through the defense fire. All sons resemble their fathers eventually. He had studied the records from Armageddon. He had seen the winged figure break Gorzag's skullcrumper and order the killing of loyal armies. Whether the creature was truly Sanguinius mattered less than the faith it commanded. Faith was architecture. Given sufficient blood, architecture could be dismantled. "Commit the outer squadrons," Vaughn ordered. "Break their engines. Leave enough alive for harvesting." The sorcerer inclined his horned helm. "And the remainder of the blood host?" "Hiding." "Where?" Vaughn's ruined mouth curved. "Where frightened angels always hide. Behind sacrifice."
Remember, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Support helps.
The flesh-tearers reached torpedo range. Their launch bays opened. What emerged was not a wave of conventional warheads, but a storm of boarding torpedoes armored in red ceramite. They crossed the void beneath covering fire, engines correcting through debris and defense beams. Many died before impact. Others struck the orbital platforms with enough force to punch through layered armor and bury themselves inside. The first torpedo opened within an ammunition artery. Blood Angel's Terminators marched from its ruptured shell into a corridor too narrow for formation warfare. Their armor scraped both walls. Storm bolters fired without pause, detonating cultists against bulkheads until the passage became painted with flesh. A corrupted servitor charged on piston legs, its torso replaced by an ammunition drum and rotary cannon. Heavy flamer fire engulfed it. The servitor continued forward, while skin ran from its skull and the organic material around its spine cooked inside the metal housing. A Terminator caught it by the weapon mount and drove it through the wall. The second boarding team teleported into a shrine deck. Reality cracked around them. They arrived among chanting cultists who had cut out their own eyes and replaced their tongues with iron prayer strips. Power fists rose and fell. Bodies burst beneath the blows. One cultist was struck through the chest and folded around the gauntlet, ribs and organs forced from his back in a steaming mass. Melter charges opened paths through internal blast doors. Heavy flamers filled chambers with white fire. The station's crew fled toward ammunition vaults, already marked by infiltrator beacons. Blood Angel's veterans reached the magazines, locked their boots to the deck, and armed the demolition cores. Orison's crown tore itself apart. Detonations ran through the station's spine. Kilometers of armor ruptured. Gun batteries fell silent as entire decks sheared away. Void shields flickered and died. Vaughn was thrown against the command throne. The sorcerer beside him vanished beneath a collapsing arch of black iron. His armor split. Demonic script and pulped organs spilled across the deck. Warning runes flooded Vaughn's lenses. Then the gas giant's storms opened. Dante's fleet emerged from concealment. Battleships rose from the electromagnetic turbulence with shields already charged. Grand cruisers followed. The Red Host's central formations advanced behind them in ordered lines, gun decks glowing. Dante raised one hand. Fire. The void became light. Imperial lances struck the exposed flanks of the Black Legion vessels. Macro cannon salvos broke shields and drove through armor. A traitor cruiser turned too slowly and received a full broadside through its engine decks. Its plasma drives ruptured, consuming the ship in a sphere of blue fire. The enemy's orbital formation collapsed inward. Sanguinius did not wait for it to die. The first drop pods fell, while the fleet battle still raged. They crossed the atmosphere as burning stars. Storm ravens and thunderhawks descended behind them, their hulls shaking beneath anti-aircraft fire. Sanguinary Guard formed spearheads around the Primarch, golden armor bright against Orison's poisoned heavens. Sanguinius fell with his wings folded. Enemy aircraft rose to meet him. The nearest was a corrupted interceptor whose cockpit had been sealed around a screaming pilot. Its autocannons fired. Sanguinius opened his wings before the shells reached him. He rolled through the barrage and thrust the spear of Telesto forward. Red-gold fire crossed the sky. The interceptor split from prow to engine, its pilot and machine becoming a rain of burning fragments. Storm Raven-less cannons cut through a second formation. Enemy craft came apart in mid-flight, wings tumbling away while cockpits plunged toward the hive. Inferno pistols flashed among the Sanguinary Guard, turning armor and bodies to incandescent vapor. Drop pods struck the processional planes. Their doors blew outward into ranks of cultists. Blood angels emerged firing. Bolt shells tore men open from within, scattering fragments of spine and pelvis across the trenches. Assault marines descended behind them, jump packs turning chained captives and their guards into silhouettes against the fire. Sanguinius reached the ground before the first line had formed. He landed upon a demon engine shaped from a tank chassis and the lower body of a bound beast. The impact broke its spine. The creature's rear limbs collapsed, while its cannon discharged into the earth. Sanguinius drove the spear of Telesto through its armor. Light filled the demon engine. Its organic mass inflated, split and burst. Black organs and brass fragments struck the soldiers around it. The trapped souls within escaped as screaming vapor, clawing at Sanguinius as they vanished into the poisoned air. He looked toward the principal hive. A cathedral rose at its center. Its walls were made from men. Priests, confessors, and shrine guardians had been fused together alive, their bodies layered into arches and buttresses. Arms projected from the masonry. Mouths remained open in prayer or agony. Incense burners hung from human spines. Blood ran through channels beneath the altar steps. Lord Carex Vaughn waited inside. He had abandoned the orbital crown before its destruction. His teleportation chamber had placed him within the cathedral as Sanguinius's forces entered the hive. Vaughn stood before a tactical hololith, showing his armies failing across the continent. He knew the Primarch was coming. He also knew there would be no victory. That knowledge did not make him afraid. Fear had been beaten out of him during wars whose names the Imperium had forgotten. It made him curious. The cathedral doors exploded inward. Sanguinius walked through the falling bodies embedded within them. Behind him, the Sanguinary Guard fought black legionaries among the columns. Bolter fire filled the nave. Traitor Astartes died beneath encarmine blades. Golden warriors fell beneath plasma and demon-tainted steel. Vaughn raised his weapon. The sword was called Penitence. A demon lived within its serrated length, feeding upon regret. Faces moved beneath the metal. "You are smaller than worship made you," Vaughn said. Sanguinius's gaze passed over the walls of fused clergy. "You required all this to make yourself feel large." Vaughn attacked. The demon blade came down, trailing black fire. Sanguinius caught it upon the shaft of the spear of Telesto. The impact shattered the altar. Warp flame rolled across the nave, burning cultists to bone. Vaughn turned the blade and drove its teeth toward the Primarch's throat. Sanguinius stepped aside before the motion began. The spear struck Penitence near the guard. The demon weapon broke. Its scream passed through every mouth in the cathedral walls. Black vapor erupted from the fracture, filled with grasping faces. Vaughn stared at the remains of the sword. Sanguinius severed his left arm at the elbow. The traitor staggered. The second stroke removed the right at the shoulder. Armor, bone, and cables parted beneath the blade. Both arms fell to the steps. Blood pumped from the wounds in thick, dark streams. Vaughn remained standing. Sanguinius seized him by the throat and carried him to the tactical hololith. The display showed orbital platforms failing. Black Legion vessels broke formation under Dante's fire. Flesh-tearers boarded the surviving cruisers. On the surface, Imperial armor entered the hives, while demon engines burned in the processional trenches. Sanguinius forced Vaughn to look. "Your commanders are watching," the Primarch said. Vaughn's ruby lenses flickered. Open channels filled the chamber. Sanguinius held him upright before the hololith. "Tell them to surrender." Vaughn laughed through blood. "You intend to kill them regardless." "Yes." The answer silenced the channel. Sanguinius leaned close enough for the traitor to see his reflection in the angel's eyes. "They must understand that surrender will not purchase survival. They built this world from the suffering of the helpless. I will leave no one alive who can teach another how it was done." Vaughn looked upon the fall of his armies. "At last," he rasped, "your sons have given you something worth becoming." Sanguinius drove his hand through the traitor's abdomen. His fingers passed between armor plates and entered the body beneath. He closed them around the spine and lifted. Vaughn's lower body remained where it stood. The upper half came away in Sanguinius's grasp, trailing organs and lengths of intestine across the steps. The Chaos Lord did not die immediately. His transhuman hearts beat on, flooding the ruin of his torso. Sanguinius held him before the active channels until the ruby lenses went dark. Only then did he drop the corpse. The victory should have ended there. It did not. Dante found the truth beneath the hive. Auspex scans revealed a neural lattice descending through hundreds of sublevels. Cables thinner than veins entered the skulls and spinal columns of the population. 9 billion civilians remained alive beneath the principal hive, stacked within habitation vaults, transit tunnels, and excavated chambers. They were not prisoners beside the psychic engine. They were the engine. Dante stood before the tactical display aboard the Blade of Vengeance, while Medici adepts explained the linkage. "Severing the system kills them," he said. "Yes, Lord Regent." "Can it be isolated?" "Given sufficient time." "How long?" "Weeks, perhaps months." The warp rift above Orison's wake widened. A nearby moon vanished behind its expanding edge. Sanguinius entered the strategium with blood drying upon his armor. Dante faced him. "We can contain the hive, deploy null field generators, bring Mechanicus specialists and additional librarians." Sanguinius looked upon the futures. He saw the rescue teams enter the neural vaults. He saw the lattice awaken. He saw 17 inhabited systems disappear into the rift. "No." Dante's voice remained controlled. "There are 9 billion lives below. There are 80 trillion across the reach. That does not make these lives worthless. It makes the choice unequal." Sanguinius indicated the hive. "Prepare cyclonic warheads." The strategium became silent. Dante looked toward his father. "Do you call this mercy?" "No." "Necessity?" "No." "Then what do you call it?" Sanguinius watched the trapped population through the tactical display. "Murder committed in service to survival." He opened every functioning Vox channel upon the world. His voice entered the vaults beneath the hive. It spoke through manufactorum speakers, broken helmets, prison intercoms, and the implants fused into the captives' skulls. "People of Orison's wake, hear me." Chained men raised their heads in the darkness. "You were betrayed by the weakness of the Imperium and by the hunger of those who came through that weakness. Your bodies have been made part of a weapon that cannot be dismantled before it destroys other worlds." Sanguinius did not soften his voice. "I will not promise paradise. I will not tell you that pain grants meaning. I will not claim the Emperor desired this." The cyclonic warheads entered their launch cradles. "You will die because I have chosen that others will live. Some among you will curse me. You are right to do so." The bombardment sirens began. "I am sorry." The warheads fell. They struck the northern continent and buried themselves beneath the crust. For an instant, nothing happened. Then Orison's wake opened. Fire erupted from fault lines. Hive foundations collapsed into rising magma. Oceans turned to steam and scoured the continents beneath walls of superheated vapor. Mountains broke apart. The principal hive sank through its own foundations, while 9 billion nervous systems died in the same fraction of a heartbeat. From orbit, the world became a skull. The burning hive scars formed its eye sockets. A split continent became a grinning mouth filled with magma. Dante removed the death mask of Sanguinius. He could not wear his father's face while watching what his father had done. The red host withdrew beyond the dying world's gravity well. Victory signals moved through the fleet. Bells tolled. Officers calculated losses. Priests prepared declarations of deliverance. Sanguinius stood alone in the strategium after the command staff had gone. Blood ran from his eyes. It traced his cheeks and fell from his jaw. More came from his nose and mouth. His hands gripped the command table while the psychic deaths passed through him one by one. Too many for any mind to hold, and too immediate for foresight to make distant. Dante entered without his mask. Sanguinius did not look toward him. "How many worlds has Gilliman condemned?" the Primarch asked. Dante stopped. "I do not know." "How many billions?" "I do not know." "Did he watch them die?" Dante had no answer. Sanguinius raised his face. His eyes were red with ruptured vessels. "I saw everyone." Dante understood then that foresight had not made his father indifferent. It had removed the refuge of ignorance. Sanguinius could see the horror more clearly than any of them, and because he saw it clearly, he could choose it with perfect certainty. The Black Rage had learned patience. Mephiston saw it in the reports before he felt it in the blood. Across the Red Host, the old pattern of collapse had begun to diminish. Fewer warriors awoke believing themselves upon the vengeful spirit. Fewer screamed Horus's name while tearing at restraints or striking brothers they could no longer recognize. Chaplains reported moments of lucidity where none had existed before. The improvement was a lie. Violence had become synchronized. Blood angels separated by decks, ships, and light years struck serfs at the same instant. Warriors who had never met woke from dreams speaking identical words. Armorers found winged figures scratched into bulkheads, prayer cells, and the inner plating of helms. The image was always the same. An angel stood upon a mountain of corpses. One wing remained white, the other was black. Around the figure's feet lay Astartes, mortals and demons together, their blood flowing into a single river beneath a dead sun. Mephiston studied every rendering. The crude lines differed. The hand behind them did not. He stood within the librarious sanctum of the Blade of Vengeance, surrounded by sealed reliquaries and wards hammered into the walls with silver nails. Psi-reactive chains hung from the ceiling. Sensors burned compounds that would have killed an unmodified man within moments. Beneath the floor, bound servitors whispered fragments of forgotten litanies through mouths sewn shut with copper wire. The chief librarian knelt inside a circle, painted with his own blood. He slowed both hearts. He emptied his lungs. He opened the gate within himself. The material world fell away. Mephiston entered the inheritance of Sanguinius. He had crossed that psychic country before. It had never possessed geography in any mortal sense. Memory, instinct, and curse formed its landscape. Blood became oceans. Feathers fell as snow. The dead walked beneath skies scarred by the last light of terror. Now the realm was changing. A golden figure stood upon the horizon. Once, its radiance had filled the entire sky. It had been the distant hope within every son of the ninth bloodline, the promise of grace buried beneath appetite. Mephiston had never known whether it was a soul, an echo, or the shape created by 10,000 years of belief. The golden presence had diminished. Its wings had become thin as dying flame. Light leaked from wounds across its body and flowed away into a distant shape bearing Sanguinius's face. Much of the entity had been torn from this place to clothe the returned Primarch in flesh. Something else remained. Behind the fading angel rose a darkness vast enough to eclipse worlds. It did not possess a single shape. At times it resembled a winged warrior with a skull for a face. At others it became a continent of fused bodies, each screaming through the same mouth. Horns, claws, and broken pinions moved within it. Stars vanished behind its outline. Mephiston looked upward. The black presence looked down. There were no words. Understanding entered him through images sharp enough to wound. He saw a flesh-tearer giving himself to rage upon a siege world. The warrior ripped an enemy officer in half and drank from the exposed arteries. Far away, Sanguinius straightened as strength entered his limbs. He saw a blood angel kneeling in meditation, restraining the red thirst, while prisoners bled beyond a cell door. The fury denied within the warrior rose like smoke and traveled through the gene line. It entered Sanguinius. He saw 1,000 battle brothers refusing madness. He saw their father carrying what they would not. Every surrender strengthened him. Every act of discipline burdened him. Sanguinius had not replaced the curse. He had become its center. The black entity spread its wings. Within each feather, Mephiston saw a future. Sanguinius upon a throne of bones. Sanguinius leading millions of black-armored sons through burning palaces. Sanguinius tearing Guilliman's head from his body beneath the shadow of the imperial palace. Mephiston withdrew. The vision followed. He opened his eyes inside the sanctum. Blood had filled the circle around him. Not spilled blood. It had risen from beneath the deck, seeping through seams in the iron until it covered his knees. Faces moved beneath its surface, mouths opening and closing without sound. A warning rune flashed upon the chamber wall. Containment failure. The signal came from the Misericord of Baal, a fortress transport moving near the center of the Red Host. Its holds carried the largest concentration of Death Company warriors gathered since the devastation of Baal. Mephiston rose. The blood vanished before it reached the door. Aboard the Misericord of Baal, the lost had prepared their escape. They did not throw themselves against the restraints in blind fury. They studied guard rotations. They counted the intervals between sedative injections. They listened to the machine rhythms of the lock systems and learned where the ship's power conduits crossed behind the walls. The first breach began without a roar. A Death Company warrior dislocated both thumbs inside his gauntlets, slipping free of the restraint clamps around his wrists. He broke the neck of the attending serf before the mortal could activate an alarm. The second warrior used the dead serf's hand to release a medical seal. The third tore a restraint chain from the deck and wrapped it around a chaplain's throat. By the time alarms sounded, 3 containment chambers were already open. Hundreds of black-armored warriors moved through the transport. They killed with purpose. A squad formed a firing line at a junction and shot security servitors through their targeting clusters. Another tore open the ceiling and advanced through maintenance ducts, too narrow for conventional pursuit. A third removed the limbs from dead chapter serfs and threw them into intersecting corridors. Defense gunners fired at the movement. The severed arms and legs disintegrated beneath bolter rounds. The Death Company attacked from the opposite direction. They breached bulkheads in sequence, using melter charges stolen from an armory rather than wasting strength upon sealed doors. They severed Vox relays before command could warn the engine decks. They destroyed fire suppression systems and opened fuel lines to force defenders from prepared positions. Their violence remained monstrous. A mortal armsman fired until his las rifle overheated. A black-armored warrior caught him by the jaw and drove a thumb through the roof of his mouth. Bone broke. The thumb entered the brain. The warrior held the corpse upright as a shield while advancing through las fire. 2 Death Company brothers seized a wounded chaplain and pulled in opposite directions. Armor seals tore. The chaplain's torso opened beneath the breastplate, spilling organs across the deck, while his Crozius continued to spit disruption lightning from his dying hand. Every internal Vox channel carried the same voice, Sanguinius's voice. The engine chamber is the Eternity Gate. Horus waits beyond the reactors. Break the walls. Let nothing stand between us and the War Master. Lamartz entered the transport through a boarding tunnel while the fighting spread toward the plasma drives. He led no honor guard. The warriors behind him were chaplains trained to control the lost, but he ordered them to remain at the docking seal. "This is my burden," he said. One of them raised his Crozius in protest. "They will kill you." "They have tried before." Lamartez advanced alone. His black armor bore scars left by brothers who had mistaken him for Horus across centuries of war. Chains hung from his belt. His skull helm reflected emergency lumens that pulsed red through corridors painted with blood. He found the first group near the secondary coolant artery. 20 Death Company warriors stood among the remains of the ship's defenders. Mortal corpses had been arranged along the walls, not as trophies, but as markers showing the direction of advance. Their helms turned toward Lamartz. He deactivated his Crozius. "Brothers!" One raised a chain axe. "Horus!" "No!" The warrior stepped forward. Lamartz removed his helm. His face was pale, lined and marked by the same curse burning behind their eyes. "I am Lamartez. Horus lies. I have fought beside you. Horus deceives. I have buried you." The warriors advanced. Lamartez spread his arms. "Then come, let your rage fall upon me." They charged. The first blow struck his breastplate and split the black ceramite from shoulder to sternum. Lamartez caught the chain axe's haft and drove his forehead into the attacker's helm, cracking both faceplates. A second warrior buried a combat blade beneath Lamartez's ribs. A third seized his left arm. Lamartez did not kill them. He struck joints, broke grips, and redirected weapons into bulkheads. He named each warrior whose identity he knew. He recited their battles and the oaths they had sworn before madness claimed them. "Brother Kalen, you held the breach at Nightfall Reach." A power fist struck his abdomen. Internal organs ruptured. "Brother Aphael, you carried your captain from the ruins of Colophis." A chain blade tore through his thigh plate and opened the muscle beneath. "Brother Damaris, you are not your father." They dragged him down. Hands closed around his limbs. One warrior planted a boot upon his chest, while two others pulled at his right arm. Shoulder seals tore apart. Tendons stretched. Bone ground within the joint. Lamartz roared, not from fear, but command. "I am not Horus." The arm began to leave its socket. A shadow passed across the corridor. Every Death Company warrior froze. Sanguinius stood beyond them. He had come without helm or escort. His crimson armor remained marked by the fires of Orison's wake. The white feathers of his wings filled the corridor behind him. "Kneel," he said. Hundreds of warriors throughout the transport obeyed. The lost released Lamartez and lowered themselves to the blood-slicked deck. Weapons fell from their hands. Some bowed their helms until the forehead plates struck iron. Sanguinius walked among them. He reached the center of the kneeling formation. "Look at me." They raised their heads. Sanguinius opened his arms. The madness came out of them. Mephiston felt it from another ship. Astaroth heard it as a scream carried through the walls. A black radiance poured from the eye lenses, armor joints, and open mouths of the Death Company. It crossed the corridor in streams and entered Sanguinius through his wounds, his eyes, and the roots of his wings. The Primarch's body arched. His feathers darkened from their tips inward. Veins rose beneath the skin of his face, black and swollen. His pupils expanded until his eyes became pools without light. The lost breathed together. Calm returned to them. Sanguinius began to shake. His face changed. Lamartez had seen that expression upon every warrior lost to the Black Rage. It was the face worn by Sanguinius in the last instant before Horus killed him. Not sorrow, not noble resignation. Hatred stripped of every restraint. The Primarch looked down at the kneeling warriors. For one heartbeat, Lamartez believed he would slaughter them. Astaroth arrived with the executioner's axe already raised. He crossed the ruined corridor through clouds of smoke and coolant vapor. Chaplains followed but did not approach. They knew the office Asterath carried. They knew why the axe existed. Sanguinius turned toward him. The darkness within the Primarch's wings deepened. Asterath stopped within striking distance. "Do you see me?" he asked. Sanguinius's lips drew back from his teeth. "Yes." "Do you know my purpose?" "Yes." Asterath brought the axe into both hands. "Then command me to stand down." "No." The High Chaplain tightened his grip. Sanguinius stepped closer, presenting his throat to the sanctified blade. "You possess what too many loyal sons lack. A weapon? The courage to imagine your father can fall." Asterath's face remained rigid. "I have killed brothers greater than I because they became less than themselves. Would you kill me? If you require it." Sanguinius's eyes lightened by a fraction. "Good." His wings trembled. Loyalty without the will to oppose corruption is cowardice dressed as devotion. Remember that when the others kneel too quickly. Asterath lowered the axe, but did not deactivate its disruption field. The black veins beneath Sanguinius's face began to fade. The Death Company remained silent. The council assembled aboard the Blade of Vengeance before the damaged transport had completed repairs. Seth stood opposite Dante beneath the Strategium Hololith. Asterath and Lamates remained near Sanguinius. Mephiston watched his father without concealing his unease. "The curse can be directed," Seth said. Dante's ancient face hardened. "It consumed a transport and killed hundreds of our servants. Because it was confined. It was confined because those warriors are insane. They are weapons. They are sons." Seth struck the command table with one gauntlet. "They are both. If he can draw the rage into himself, then release it through the host. No enemy line in this damned galaxy could stand before us." Dante stepped toward him. "You would offer our father's soul as ammunition. I would use what we have become. What you have become is not a standard by which the rest of us should measure survival." Seth smiled without humor. "There speaks the golden corpse who has spent 15 centuries pretending nobility can make thirst disappear." Dante's hand moved toward his axe. Sanguinius raised the spear of Telesto between them. "Enough." Silence followed. Mephiston faced him. "The curse is accumulating within you. Every surrender to rage strengthens your body. Every act of restraint among your sons transfers what they deny into your soul. I know. You cannot contain it indefinitely. I know. Then the crusade must halt." Sanguinius looked at the tactical display of the Vesperid Reach. Enemy movements burned across the stars. Slave fleets converged upon hidden coordinates. Warp disturbances spread from system to system. "If we withdraw, Abaddon completes the second engine. Your visions say this." "Yes." Mephiston studied him. "And do you trust them?" For the first time, Sanguinius did not answer immediately. Dante watched his father's face. Sanguinius spoke quietly. "No." The word disturbed the chamber more than any declaration. "I cannot tell whether I see futures," the Primarch continued, "or paths placed before me by powers that know I will choose the least ruinous among them." "Then we are being led," said Asterath. "Perhaps. And still you advance." Sanguinius looked upon the dead systems around the Reach. "If the visions are true, retreat condemns trillions. If they are false, remaining still grants the enemy time to make them true." Lamates retrieved his broken helm and held it beneath one arm. "Then there is no choice." "There is always a choice," Sanguinius said. "There is merely no innocent one." He turned toward Dante. "Continue the crusade." Far within the Eye of Terror, the vengeful spirit moved through storms of screaming light. Abaddon stood before the rebuilt Angelbane engine. Noctilith pillars surrounded a corroded section of deck cut from the place where Horus had murdered his brother. Gene seed caskets pulsed between the pylons. Dark Mechanicum adepts hung from cables overhead, Their flesh opened and stitched into the machine's transmission arrays. The talon of Horus rested upon Abaddon's hand. He drew one ancient claw across his palm. Blood welled from the cut. The War Master held his hand above the engine and allowed the blood to fall upon the stained iron. The machine awakened. Every captured progenoid gland contracted. The pylons screamed. From within the engine came the voice of Sanguinius, reliving the moment of his death. Abaddon listened. Aboard the Blade of Vengeance, Sanguinius opened his eyes. Dante stood before him. The Primarch's hands were already around his throat. Dante returned to consciousness beneath his father's hands. Ceramite groaned around his gorget. The Primarch's fingers had sunk through the golden armor and closed upon the flesh beneath. Dante's spine pressed against the strategium floor. Warning sigils flooded the lenses of the death mask, each rune reporting failing blood flow, fractured plating, and imminent vertebral damage. Sanguinius knelt over him. The angel's face held no recognition. He stared through Dante and into a memory 10,000 years old. His pupils were black. Veins stood beneath his pale skin, like cracks spreading through marble. The feathers nearest his shoulders had darkened, each white vein stained as though dipped in funeral ink. "Horus," Sanguinius whispered. Dante could not breathe. He forced one hand against his father's wrist and found it immovable. "My lord," he rasped. The grip tightened. Then warning klaxons began to howl throughout the Blade of Vengeance. The hololithic vault ignited around them. Enemy translation signatures flowered across the Vesperid Reach in numbers so vast that the tactical engines abandoned individual identification and represented them as walls of crimson light. Sanguinius blinked. The past released him. He recoiled from Dante as though burned. His hands opened. Dante rolled aside, drawing air through a throat already swelling beneath the armor. Neither spoke of what had happened. There was no time. Bale fleets erupted from concealed warp routes across the Reach. They emerged behind moons, within asteroid belts, and inside the gravity wells of inhabited worlds. Black Legion cruisers translated with their weapons already firing. Slaughter-class vessels burned toward Imperial formations at attack speed. Despoiler battleships launched swarms of corrupted bombers, whose engines screamed through every open Vox channel. World Eater's assault carriers descended upon population centers before planetary governors understood war had begun. Dropcraft struck hive plazas, manufactorum roofs, and defensive trenches. Their doors opened upon red-armored killers, chanting the name of the blood god. Chain axes rose and fell among civilians. Heads rolled through temple courts. Bodies were hacked apart, not for strategy, but because slaughter had become sacrament. Across the Reach, cults awakened. Defense laser crews murdered their officers and reversed the great weapons toward Imperial ships. Dock workers sabotaged fuel reserves. Astropaths tore out their own tongues and painted 8-pointed stars in blood across choir chambers. Planetary shields failed at the moment enemy torpedoes entered range. Then the darkness behind Dante's fleet split open. The mournful testament emerged. The Ark of Omen was not built so much as accumulated. Its hull contained the remains of dead warships, Xenos structures, shattered orbital cities, and entire sections of worlds torn free by forces no Imperial savant could name. Cathedral towers jutted from slabs of black armor. Chains kilometers long dragged wreckage behind it. Demonic engines glowed within exposed cavities like organs visible through a flensed chest. It appeared directly behind the Red Host. Its first broadside erased an Imperial carrier. Void shields collapsed beneath lances, colored like infected wounds. Macro projectiles entered the carrier's spine and detonated among its flight decks. The vessel broke apart from within. Thousands of attack craft, fuel lines, and munitions magazines ignited together, turning the carrier into a burning city whose fragments tumbled toward the nearest world. Dante forced himself upright. Fleet-wide command channel. The strategium obeyed. Red Host, this is Dante. All formations break from devotional spacing. Assume eclipse pattern. Void interdiction elements turn upon the Ark. Relief battle groups maintain planetary defense. No vessel pursues beyond mutual support. Acknowledgements overlapped one another. Some ended in static. Thousands of capital ships fought across distances greater than planetary orbits. Battleships exchanged lance fire across hundreds of thousands of kilometers. Macro cannon shells traveled through darkness for long minutes before striking shields and bursting into artificial suns. Torpedo waves crossed between formations in such numbers that whole escort squadrons vanished inside their detonations. Attack craft filled the void. Imperial interceptors tore through corrupted bombers. Pilots fired until ammunition counters reached nothing, then rammed enemy machines because there was nowhere left to land. Thunderhawks hunted boarding torpedoes between the larger vessels. Storm Ravens deployed Astartes into drifting wrecks so they could turn dead ships into ambush points. Cities' worth of crew died every minute. When a cruiser lost atmospheric integrity, tens of thousands were expelled into vacuum. They emerged through hull breaches among shards of metal, burning parchment and frozen blood. Some remained alive long enough to claw at their throats before the cold silenced them. Wreckage fell toward inhabited worlds. Burning prows entered atmospheres like meteors. Reactor cores struck oceans and turned coastlines into steam. Entire hive districts disappeared beneath debris from ships whose names the populations below had never known. Dante studied the hololith. Something was wrong. The mournful testament possessed enough firepower to drive directly into the red host and break its center. Instead, it fired in controlled intervals. Its attack wing struck particular formations, then withdrew. Black Legion cruisers threatened the flanks, but refused decisive engagement. They were shepherding the fleet. "Display all major reactor signatures," Dante ordered. The hololith changed. Imperial plasma drives appeared as points of white light. Their arrangement formed no recognized naval pattern. Overlay enemy fire corridors. Lines crossed between them. A shape emerged. It was not a tactical formation. It was a sigil. The Imperial vessels had been driven into the geometry of an occult diagram, spanning the entire inner system. Battleship reactors marked its outer points. Defense platforms formed the circle. The mass of Charon's Rest occupied the center. Dante felt cold beneath his armor. "They are not trying to destroy us." Sanguinius stood beside him, his face restored to calm. "No, they are using the fleet as a machine." Dante magnified the pattern. "Every time we reposition, they close another line." The mournful testament fired again. 3 Imperial cruisers altered course to avoid the salvo. Their drives completed another arc in the sigil. Dante opened the command channel. "All vessels, kill main drives. Emergency thrust only. Do not correct formation without direct order." Some captains obeyed. Others saw enemy ships bearing down upon them and broke position. The diagram tightened. A new translation flare ignited beyond the outer moon. It did not come from the warp. Trees appeared within vacuum. For an impossible instant, a forest stood among the stars, black trunks rising through mist beneath a moon no augur could identify. Shadowed paths opened between the trees. Strike cruisers emerged from them in disciplined silence, their hulls dark green and bone white. The Lion had come. His fleet translated into the battle without warning, already aligned upon the enemy flank. Dark Angel's lance batteries fired before their arrival echoes faded. A Black Legion Grand Cruiser lost its shields, its prow and half its command decks in the opening salvo. Lionel Johnson appeared upon the Blade of Vengeance's command dais without teleport flare or psychic thunder. He simply stepped from shadow. The warriors nearest him raised weapons. The Lion ignored them. His armor bore fresh damage. Blood, black enough to belong to something inhuman, covered the edge of his sword. Several redeemed sons of Caliban emerged behind him. The Lion looked at the tactical display. Where is the enemy strongest? No greeting, no demand for authority, no discussion of command. Dante pointed toward the mournful testament's supporting formation. 3 battleships and the Ark's principal attack squadrons hold this corridor. The Lion studied it for less than a heartbeat. Good. Sanguinius turned toward him. You came quickly. You were in danger. I am always in danger. Yes. The Lion looked toward Dante. Open a path. What do you require? Nothing. He turned back toward the shadow from which he had stepped. I will return when their strongest point is dead. Dark Angel's vessels changed course. They advanced not as a fleet, but as a blade. Escorts screened their flanks. Strike cruisers concentrated fire upon single targets until shields failed. Then battle barges delivered bombardment shells into the breaches. Boarding craft followed immediately, carrying warriors into the wounded hulls before emergency bulkheads could seal. The Lion vanished into the forest paths. Minutes later, enemy distress signals erupted across the void. Charon's Rest called for evacuation. The moon had become the anvil of Abaddon's plan. World Eaters descended in numbers no planetary garrison could withstand. Their landers darkened the upper atmosphere. Brass drop fortresses struck the hive plains. Demon engines crawled from impact craters, while berserkers poured into defensive lines already weakened by cult uprisings. More than 3 billion Astra Militarum soldiers remained upon the moon. Their Lord General appeared upon the strategium display, his face illuminated by fire. Lord Regent, the northern hives are lost. Enemy armor has crossed the Gehenna River. We request immediate extraction of command assets and gene stock personnel. Dante looked toward Sanguinius. The Primarch's eyes had become distant. How long can they hold? Dante asked. The Lord General did not answer at once. 2 hours under current pressure. 6, if every reserve is committed. Sanguinius spoke. You will hold for 6. The general stared at him. My lord, there will be no army left to recover. I know. Evacuation remains possible for perhaps 40 million. No evacuation. Dante turned sharply. The transports are already in low orbit. They are needed to reposition the fleet. There are billions below, and their deaths will pin the World Eaters in place. The general heard every word. His expression emptied. Sanguinius faced the hololithic image of the dying man. Lord General, your army will not survive. I require 6 hours. Every minute you deny the enemy preserves ships above you and worlds beyond this system. The mortal commander stood straighter. Will relief come? No. The answer was immediate. The general closed his eyes. When he opened them, fear remained. So did discipline. Then we will hold. Charon's Rest became hell. Titan Legios fought among hive spires, while the sky burned with descending ships. A warlord Titan strode through the industrial districts, its void shields flashing beneath enemy fire. Its volcano cannon discharged and cut a corrupted Reaver apart at the waist. The traitor engine's upper body fell into a hab complex containing millions of refugees. Towers collapsed beneath it. Plasma fire consumed those not crushed by the impact. Bane blades formed armored walls across the Gehenna floodplain. Their main guns fired until barrels glowed orange. Crews continued loading shells as cooling systems failed. One super-heavy tank destroyed 3 World Eaters assault engines before its cannons split along the length and exploded, filling the fighting compartment with molten metal and boiling the crew inside their uniforms. Infantry regiments drowned beneath berserker assaults. Chain axes bit through flak armor, ribs and spines. Men were split from shoulder to hip. Heads were hacked free and thrown ahead of the red tide. Wounded soldiers tried to crawl from trenches, already filling with blood, and were trampled beneath the boots of those still fighting. Artillery excavated the same ground again and again. Shells tore open trenches and flung bodies skyward. Reinforcements entered the craters. More shells fell. Earth, meat and armor mixed into layers. Rivers clogged with corpses until the water changed course around them. The defenders held. They held because commissars shot those who fled. They held because officers led charges with pistols empty and swords broken. They held because Sanguinius had told them there would be no rescue, and despair had become simpler than hope. An open transmission forced itself across the system. Abaddon appeared upon every functioning Imperial command display. He stood aboard the vengeful spirit beneath banners taken from dead worlds. The talon of Horus rested against his side. Drachnian remained sheathed. He did not shout. He did not call Sanguinius brother or imitate the voice of Horus. "Do you remember," Abaddon asked, "that the Emperor sent his sons to die while he remained upon the throne?" Sanguinius approached the display. "I remember more than you do. You remember obedience. That is not the same thing. You mistake defiance for freedom." Abaddon's expression remained controlled. "Your father spent you. Horus broke you. The Imperium consumed what remained. Now you have returned to spend your own sons more efficiently." Sanguinius looked toward the burning moon. "At least they are mine to mourn." "Is that what you call it?" "No." The Primarch's voice hardened. "I call it war." Abaddon studied him. "You were always the most convincing lie among the Emperor's sons." Sanguinius stepped closer to the projection. "And you have spent 10,000 years pretending inheritance is achievement. You wear Horus's claw. You command Horus's ship. You claim Horus's title. Beneath all of it, Ezekiel, what have you made that was truly yours?" For the first time, anger touched Abaddon's face. It vanished almost at once. "That is why I will not fight you fairly." The transmission ended. The mournful testament opened. Armor plates kilometers across drew apart, revealing a chamber at the ark's center. Noctilith pylons rose around a fragment of ancient deck plating. Caskets of stolen gene seed pulsed between them. Dark Mechanicum engines fed blood through transparent conduits. The second Angelbane engine awakened. Dante saw Horus. The War Master stood where Sanguinius had been, his armor black, his face filled with sorrow. Every Blood Angel saw him. Helm displays changed. Targeting runes transformed into staring eyes. Friend or foe systems marked allied vessels as the vengeful spirit. Vox channels filled with the sound of bones breaking and wings tearing. A Blood Angel's cruiser fired into the flank of its sister ship. Lances opened the vessel from prow to stern. Strike cruisers turned their guns upon one another. Boarding teams attacked their own transport decks. Pilots broke formation and rammed friendly gunships while screaming Horus's name. Across the fleet, Death Company restraints failed. Black-armored warriors tore through containment seals with coordinated precision. Chaplains died beneath their hands. Engine decks became slaughterhouses. Sanguinius gripped the strategium rail. His wings spread. Dante saw his father's face begin to change. Then reality tore open above Charon's rest. The sky split from horizon to horizon. Blood poured from the wound in the heavens, falling in a crimson storm upon the armies below. Brass towers descended through the rupture. Blood letters came in their thousands. Hellblades raised. Fleshhounds bounded between them, jaws dripping fire. War engines of bone and metal crawled upon limbs fashioned from chained souls. Something vast pushed through behind them. Kabanda descended with wings spread across the poisoned sky. His hooves struck Charon's rest and shattered a fortress beneath him. Soldiers, tanks and walls burst outward in a ring of pulverized stone and flesh. The demon's axe burned with the light of slaughtered suns. He raised his horned head toward the Imperial ships, toward Sanguinius. His roar shook the moon and entered every son of the blood. "Death has delayed nothing, Angel." Kabanda opened his wings. "Our reckoning begins again." Sanguinius left Dante to command the war in heaven. The order passed without ceremony. The Lord Regent remained aboard the Blade of Vengeance, surrounded by a hololithic system drowning in hostile runes, while the Primarch crossed the launch vault beneath a rain of sparks and ruptured coolant. Sanguinary Guard followed in ordered ranks, their artificer plates scorched from the void battle, winged jump packs whining as armorers completed final rites over damaged turbines. Beyond the open launch shields, Charon's Rest bled beneath a broken sky. The moon's continents burned from pole to pole. Hive spires leaned across oceans of smoke. Titan engines dueled among the cities, each discharge of their weapons briefly revealing millions of smaller figures, killing one another beneath their stride. Above them yawned the wound through which Kabanda had descended, its edges crawling with crimson lightning and faces stretched thin by agony. Sanguinius looked down upon the demon host. The curse within his blood recognized them. So did the things within the warp. "Dante," he said. His son's voice answered through the vox. "I hear you. Hold the fleet together. The Angelbane pulse is worsening. I know. If you fall, the host may fall with you." Sanguinius spread his wings. "If I remain, the moon falls without me." There was no argument Dante could offer that Sanguinius had not already heard in 100 possible futures. The Primarch stepped into the void. The sanguinary guard followed. They fell through burning wreckage and clouds of attack craft. Enemy fighters turned toward them, only to be torn apart by storm-ravenless cannons and the inferno pistols of the descending guard. Red beams crossed the darkness. Cockpits vanished in white fire. Aircraft split open and trailed their crews into the atmosphere. Sanguinius entered Charon's Rest like a spear cast by a god. The demonic host saw him coming. Bloodletters raised their hell blades and screamed. Fleshhounds bayed flames through jaws, slick with mortal remains. Brass war engines rotated skull-encrusted cannons toward the falling Primarch. Then lesser demons began to retreat. They remembered him, not with minds as mortals understood thought, but through the memory of blood spilled at Cygnus Prime, through the scar left upon the warp when the angel had defied Kabanda, through the echo of his last stand upon Terra. That remembrance passed among them as terror. A corridor opened through the host. Sanguinius struck the ground inside it. The impact shattered a brass chariot and drove its demon crew beneath the earth. Bloodletters were thrown apart, their bodies breaking into iron-hard fragments and ropes of steaming entrails that dissolved before they landed. Sanguinary guard descended around him in concentric spearheads, in carmine blades igniting as their boots touched ash. Kabanda attacked before the formation settled. His axe crossed the battlefield in a burning arc. Sanguinius saw the blow before it began. He saw the sanguinary guard behind him. He saw the armored companies beyond them, their crews still loading shells into ruptured guns. He saw the axe's edge pass through all of them. He moved, not far enough. The demon's weapon struck the descending guard. 5 golden warriors vanished beneath the blade. Artificer armor opened like ceremonial foil. Bodies came apart in sprays of blood, severed limbs and shattered jump packs. The axe continued into the Imperial armor mass beyond them, cutting through Lehman Russ battle tanks and troop carriers before burying itself in the ground. The moon broke around the impact. A crater opened through several armored companies. Tanks rolled inward upon one another. Fuel ignited. Crewmen climbed from hatches with their uniforms and skin burning together, only to disappear beneath collapsing earth and grinding tracks. Kabanda's whip came next. It crossed the smoke faster than sight. The lash wrapped around Sanguinius's torso and snapped taut. Barbed links bit through crimson plate and entered flesh. Kabanda pulled. Sanguinius crossed the battlefield as a red blur. He struck a fortress wall hard enough to drive through it. Stone, armor, and men erupted inward. Imperial soldiers sheltering behind the rampart became a cloud of pulverized bodies around him. Bones struck his armor. Blood filled his mouth. A severed head lodged between the plates protecting his wing before falling away. Sanguinius emerged through the fortress's far side. He was covered in the remains of those he had come to save. Kabanda laughed. The sound rolled across the moon, rupturing mortal ears and shaking blood from the mouths of the dying. "Again," the demon roared. "Again you descend while lesser souls break beneath you." Sanguinius tore the whip from his flesh. "Come closer." Kabanda came. Their second impact broke the sound barrier. The shockwave flattened infantry formations on both sides. Men burst within their armor. Bloodletters tumbled across the ash. The Primarch and the Demon crossed blades too swiftly for mortal eyes to follow, their weapons meeting in flashes that cut shadows into the burning sky. Kabanda's axe struck downward. Sanguinius turned it with the spear of Telesto. The redirected blow sheared a hab tower in half. Its upper levels slid free and fell upon the armies below, crushing tanks, berserkers, and Imperial soldiers beneath millions of tons of stone. The spear of Telesto answered. Incandescent fire tore through Kabanda's shoulder. Brass armor liquefied. Demonic muscle split open beneath it, exposing ribs engraved with the names of murdered worlds. The blast continued through the demon and destroyed a World Eater's assault column beyond him. Kabanda struck with his whip. Sanguinius ducked. The lash passed over him and cut through 3 defense towers. Their upper sections fell trailing gun crews, ammunition belts, and severed bodies. Hundreds died from a blow that had missed its target. The armies continued fighting beneath them. There was nowhere else to go. Astra Militarum regiments fired upward at demons, while berserkers struck their trenches from the front. Titans stepped over entire battles without noticing them. Gunships fell burning from the poisoned sky. Artillery batteries fired into coordinates already occupied by both forces, because the distinction had ceased to matter. Sanguinius drove Kabanda through a manufactorum. The demon's body flattened assembly lines, vats, and hundreds of labor conscripts trapped within. Their blood joined the rivers already flowing through the building's drainage channels. Kabanda rose from the ruins, laughing through broken fangs. "You wear him well." Sanguinius landed before him. "Whom?" "The corpse your sons made from grief." The demon rolled one. Shoulder. Molten armor reformed over the wound created by the spear. "You are not the angel who defied me. You are the shape left behind when 10,000 years of madmen screamed into the dark." Sanguinius felt the accusation pass through him. It found uncertainty already waiting. Kabanda saw that doubt and smiled. "I remember the true one. I remember his pride. I remember his fear. I remember the taste of his blood before he cast me down." The demon advanced, hooves reducing bodies to red paste beneath them. "You are a shell filled with the fury of lesser suns." Sanguinius lowered the spear of Telesto. "Perhaps." Kabanda stopped. The answer denied him triumph. Sanguinius's wings opened, white feathers blackened at their tips. "But even a dead man's shadow is sufficient to kill you again." Gabriel Seth led the flesh-tearers into Kabanda's honor guard. The demons chosen were larger than common bloodletters. Their brass armor fused to muscle that existed only through hatred. Hellblades burned in their fists. Skulls hung from their horns upon chains forged from screaming souls. Seth met the first with Bloodreaver. The eviscerator tore into the demon's breastplate. Adamantine teeth shrieked against brass, caught, then chewed through. Seth drove the weapon deeper until ribs broke and something resembling a heart burst beneath the blade. Demonic entrails spilled around the chain housing, steaming into unreality before they touched the ground. A second bloodletter hacked at Seth's neck. He raised one pauldron and accepted the blow. The Hellblade split ceramite and opened the muscle beneath. Seth trapped the weapon between his shoulder and gorget, then head-butted the demon until its face collapsed inward. Flesh-tearers crashed into the honor guard around him. Chain blades ripped through brass armor. Bolt pistols detonated demonic bodies at arm's length. Black blood, red blood, and liquid fire covered the ground. A flesh-tearer lost his left arm above the elbow. The severed limb fell with the chainsword still locked in its hand. The warrior looked once at the white spike of bone protruding from the stump. He seized the exposed humerus with his remaining hand, tore it farther through the armor seal, and rammed the jagged end into a bloodletter's throat. The demon clawed at the bone embedded beneath its jaw. The flesh-tearer bit through its face. Another warrior was opened from groin to sternum. His abdominal armor split. Intestines fell between his legs in heavy loops. He stepped upon them, stumbled, then wrapped the organs around his own fist to keep them from dragging as he continued firing. Seth saw him vanish beneath 3 hellblades. He did not remember the warrior's name. There were too many dead for names. "Forward!" Seth roared. His warriors answered with howls. They drove the demons back by becoming worse. Inside the Blade of Vengeance, Mephiston fought a different war. He knelt within the command sanctum while the Angelbane pulse moved through the gene line. Blood Angel's ships fired upon false enemies. Death Company warriors attacked engine decks. Pilots saw the vengeful spirit where allied vessels flew. Mephiston entered the collective vision. The moon disappeared. He stood aboard Horus's flagship. Sanguinius knelt before the Warmaster. At the same time, the Primarch fought Kabanda upon Charon's Rest. Both battles occupied the same space. When Kabanda's whip opened Sanguinius's chest, the wound appeared upon the kneeling angel before Horus. When the talon of Horus tore into his side, Kabanda's flesh split in reality. Past and present fed one another until Mephiston could no longer tell which injury came first. The Warmaster raised his mace. Kabanda raised his axe. Both weapons fell. Mephiston thrust his will between them. Pain broke him open. His physical body convulsed aboard the battle barge. Blood burst from his nose, mouth and eyes. Armor seals filled with it. Servitors connected to the psychic warding lattice screamed until their vocal units burned out. The blow slowed, not stopped, only slowed. Sanguinius saw it coming. He saw 100 evasions and 100 consequences. If he moved left, Kabanda's axe killed the sanguinary guard behind him. If he rose, the blade continued into the reactor complex beneath the hive. If he retreated, the demon gained. Time to reach the Imperial command line. He chose the wound. Kabanda's axe entered his side. The blade cut through armor, flesh and ribs. It stopped only when the haft struck his hip. Blood flooded across the demon's hands. Kabanda leaned close. "You remember this?" "Yes," Sanguinius said. He clamped his arm over the weapon. Broken ribs closed around the axe head. Armor plates locked against the haft. Kabanda tried to pull free. Sanguinius drew the moonsilver blade. The sword flashed once. Kabanda's right wrist separated. The demon stared at the severed limb still gripping the axe. Sanguinius tore the weapon from his own body. He caught it in both hands. Then he drove Kabanda's axe into the root of the demon's left wing. Brass plates split. Tendons thicker than tank cables parted. The wing came away in a storm of blood, and feathers hardened like iron. Kabanda staggered. Sanguinius struck again. The stolen axe hacked through the second wing. The severed pinion crushed a World Eater's formation beneath it. Armor and bodies ground into the burning soil. The demon fell forward. Sanguinius cast the axe aside and seized the remaining wing root with both hands. Kabanda roared and struck him with the stump of his severed wrist. Sanguinius pulled. The flesh tore slowly. Muscle separated in red cords. Bone cracked free from the spine. Sanguinius planted one foot against the demon's back and wrenched until the remaining mass came away in his hands. Kabanda collapsed upon his knees. The spear of Telesto drove through one leg. Red gold fire burst from beneath the kneecap. Sanguinius ripped the weapon free and thrust through the other. The demon's lower limbs folded. He remained upright only because the spear pinned him to the ground. The battle around them faltered. Blood angels saw the creature that had haunted their blood forced to kneel. Demons saw a lord of Khorne mutilated beneath mortal skies. Sanguinius could have ended it. He did not. He broke Kabanda's left arm. He shattered the horns one at a time. He drove the moonsilver blade through the demon's jaw and cut away the tongue that had named his doubt. This was no longer battle. It was punishment. Kabanda looked up through a face ruined beyond resemblance. "You enjoy this?" Sanguinius stopped. The demon's laughter gurgled through its destroyed mouth. "Every wound is worship. Every scream is tribute. You think vengeance separates you from the blood god?" The words entered deeper than the axe. Kabanda leaned against the spear, holding him upright. Khorne cares not whose blood flows. Your cruelty bears no eagle. It bears no angel. It belongs to him. Sanguinius looked at his hands. They were buried to the wrists in demonic blood. For one instant, he saw the Black Angel in Mephiston's visions. He saw himself upon a throne of corpses, every son of his blood kneeling beneath wings, darkened forever. Kabanda smiled through broken teeth. Sanguinius drove his hand into the demon's chest. He tore through brass and bone. His fingers closed around a heart that burned like a forge. Kabanda's body convulsed. Sanguinius ripped the organ free. It beat in his grasp, spraying boiling blood across the surviving blood angels. "This is not worship," Sanguinius said. He crushed the heart. "It is hatred." Kabanda came apart. The banishment became a hurricane. Boiling blood exploded across the battlefield. Brass armor fragmented into storms of razored metal. Demons caught within the blast were torn back into the warp, their bodies stretching into screaming vapor. Imperial soldiers and flesh-tearers vanished beneath the deluge. Tanks overturned, towers collapsed. The wound above Kharon's rest pulsed. Millions had died. Sanguinius had hated. The warp drank both. Mephiston felt another line complete inside the system-wide ritual. The victory had not broken Abaddon's design. It had fed it. In orbit, the mournful testament ceased firing. Armor plates along its vast hull began to withdraw. Internal docks opened one after another, revealing caverns of black iron, chained cathedrals and corridors lit by the fires of captive souls. A transmission crossed the surviving fleet. No voice accompanied it. No terms were offered. The Ark simply opened itself to the Red Host. An invitation. Sanguinius looked up from the corpse-strewn moon and understood that Abaddon had been waiting for him to win. The invitation was a mouth held open in the void. Sanguinius watched the internal docks of the mournful testament widen upon the tactical hololith. Black cavities appeared beneath the Ark's armor, each large enough to swallow an Imperial cruiser. Within them burned processional fires and the pale luminescence of captive souls. No weapon discharged from those apertures. No attack craft emerged. Abaddon wanted him inside. Every future Sanguinius examined ended there. In one, the Red Host attempted sustained bombardment. The Ark's outer armor endured, while the Angelbane engine completed its work. Blood Angel's vessels turned upon one another until the system became a graveyard. In another, Dante withdrew. The mournful testament translated after them, carrying the curse into the Vesperid Reach and beyond. In another, cyclonic torpedoes struck the Ark's exposed docks. The warheads vanished into corridors that folded around them, only to reappear among the Imperial fleet. There was no distant victory. Only the blade pushed into the wound. "The engine cannot be destroyed from outside," Sanguinius said. Dante stood within the blade of Vengeance's wounded strategium. Smoke moved between broken command stations. Mortal officers lay dead, where psychic feedback had boiled their brains inside their skulls. Servitors dragged the corpses away, while tactical runes multiplied above the command dais. "You have seen this?" Dante asked. "I have seen every refusal." "And the path you choose?" Sanguinius looked toward the open ark. "I have seen nothing beyond its threshold." The admission struck the assembled commanders into silence. Dante's ancient face tightened. "Then you enter blind. As blind as any other man. You are not any other man." "No," Sanguinius said. "That is why Abaddon opened the door for me." The assault force gathered in the launch vault. Sanguinary guards stood beneath banners blackened by Kharon's rest. Flesh-tearers veterans checked chain blades still clogged with demonic residue. Mephiston waited in crimson armor, pale and motionless amid the activity. Asterath carried the executioner's axe across his shoulder. Lamates wore a newly sealed breastplate over the injuries suffered aboard the Misericorde of Baal. Assault rams waited upon magnetic cradles, their prows reinforced for penetration strikes. Sanguinius looked upon the warriors. There will be no extraction if the arc closes around us. Seth's scarred mouth twisted. Then we prevent it closing. We find the Angelbane engine. We destroy it. We do not pursue trophies, vengeance, or pride. Several flesh-tearers lowered their eyes. Sanguinius looked directly at Seth. Do you understand? I understand the words. That will have to suffice. He turned to Dante. The fleet remains yours. My father, do not follow me. Dante's gaze hardened. You ordered soldiers upon Charon's rest to die because their deaths preserved the greater war. Yes. Then do not ask me to value your life above the fleet. For a moment, Sanguinius saw himself reflected in the old warrior before him. Not in the death mask Dante carried beneath one arm, but in the exhaustion, the anger and the refusal to accept gentler lies. Hold the blockade, Sanguinius said. Abaddon must not escape. What if holding it destroys us? Then destroy him with the wreckage. The assault rams launched. They crossed the void beneath a storm of defensive fire. The mournful testament awoke around them. Gun ports opened along the ark's flanks. Lances scythed through the boarding formation. One ram vanished without debris, consumed so completely that its transmission ended between one breath and the next. Macro shells passed through the formation like moons cast from cannon. A flesh-tearer's ram took a direct strike upon its prow. Armor peeled away. The craft split along its spine and spilled Astartes into space. Warriors tumbled through vacuum amid broken restraint frames and frozen organs torn from mortal crew. Some fired jump packs and tried to correct their course. Others drifted beyond rescue, armor beacons blinking as enemy point defense guns reduced them to fragments. Sanguinius's transport reached the ark's outer screen. A beam struck its starboard engine. The assault ram rolled. Warning lumens turned the troop bay red. Restraint clamps failed. Sanguinary guards slammed against bulkheads as gravity died. The pilot fought for control, while molten metal sprayed through the cockpit seal. "Impact impossible," came the pilot's voice. "We have lost correction thrust." Sanguinius released his restraints. The outer hatch opened. Vacuum tore loose bodies, equipment, and burning fragments from the bay. The remaining sanguinary guard mag-locked themselves to the deck. Sanguinius stepped into the void. His wings opened. There was no air to carry him, but the laws surrounding the Primarch had grown uncertain. Golden light moved across his feathers. He crossed the distance between the ruined ram and the ark, while defensive shells passed around him. The outer hull rose like a continent of black iron. Sanguinius struck it feet first. Armor buckled beneath him. He drove through layered plating, cable vaults, and a chamber filled with chained bodies. Flesh, metal, and bone erupted inward. He landed amid a storm of ruptured machinery and severed limbs, the spear of Telesto burning in his hand. Behind him, surviving assault rams punched into the ark. Boarding ramps opened. War entered the mournful testament. The ark possessed no stable interior. Gravity changed without warning. Corridors became shafts. Ceilings became walls. Blood angels advanced along iron surfaces, only to feel the deck rotate beneath their boots as the structure rearranged itself around them. Imperial architecture intersected with Xenos tunnels, built for bodies that had never walked upright. Gothic arches grew from engine spaces. Cathedrals opened into launch bays, where dead ships hung upon chains. Mechanicus conduits disappeared into organic cavities that clenched when touched. The walls bled. Lubricant mixed with rendered human fat ran from cracks in the plating. Faces pushed outward beneath the metal and screamed without sound. Servitors fused into the bulkheads, tracked the blood angels with eyes preserved in milky fluid. Sanguinius led the advance through a passage lined with corpses, nailed into devotional poses. The first Black Legion Terminators attacked from behind the dead. Combi bolters fired at arm's length. A sanguinary guard took 3 rounds through the abdomen. The mass-reactive shells detonated inside his artificer plate. His torso expanded, ruptured, and sprayed the corridor with shredded organs. The upper half of his body remained suspended in the armor for an instant before collapsing around the ruined spine. The Blood Angels answered. Inferno pistols flashed. Terminator plate turned white, then ran like wax. One traitor's breastplate opened, and his hearts burst into vapor. Lightning claws tore through the formation. A Black Legion champion hooked the blades beneath a Blood Angel's gorget and pulled downward. Ceramite peeled from the warrior's chest in curling strips. The claws passed through ribs and opened both lungs. The Blood Angel drowned standing, blood flooding his helm until the eye lenses became dark. Seth struck the champion from the side. Blood Reaver entered beneath one arm and chewed across the torso. The Terminator's armor resisted long enough for the chain blade to become clogged with flesh. Seth planted a boot against the traitor's knee and forced the weapon deeper. The champion came apart. His upper body fell backward. The lower half remained upright, intestines spilling over the belt seals and steaming upon the deck. A power fist struck another Black Legionary in the head. The helmet collapsed into the chest cavity. Flesh extruded through the gorget, ear seals and fractured eye lenses in thick red cords. There was no room for elegance. The warriors killed by inches. Sanguinius moved at the front, the spear of Telesto piercing armor before enemies completed their strikes. He saw attacks before they began, yet the ark's shifting geometry disrupted the futures around him. Corridors appeared where none had existed. Doors opened into places separated by kilometers. Sometimes the Primarch saw himself die in a chamber he never reached. The structure was learning his sight. Elsewhere within the Ark, the lion hunted without banners. He moved through the dark with a handful of redeemed suns and no Vox transmission. The Emperor's shield rested upon one arm. Fealty remained low in his other hand, its blade dull beneath the oily light. The demonic control nodes pulsed through the Ark like diseased hearts. The lion did not attack the first one directly. He watched. He learned which corridors fed it. He observed the Black Legion champions guarding the approaches and the lesser demons chained into its machinery. He listened to their patrol rhythms. Then he killed them. The first champion died before he knew the lion had entered the chamber. Fealty passed through the back of his neck and emerged beneath his jaw. The lion caught the severed head before it struck the deck. The second turned at the smell of blood. The Emperor's shield smashed him into a control pillar. Armor broke. The pillar's hooked mechanisms entered the traitor's back and pushed through his chest, carrying lung tissue and shattered ribs. The third fired. The lion was already behind him. He removed the warrior's head and placed it facing the corridor his sons would follow. The redeemed advanced by those markers. Severed heads looked toward the safe path. At the node's heart, a warp-bound engine throbbed inside rings of black machinery. The lion drove fealty into it. Demonic flesh closed around the blade. He twisted. The engine screamed. Throughout the Ark, corridors spasmed. Gravity reversed. Entire formations fell from floors that had become ceilings. The lion withdrew his blade and moved toward the next node. He did not look back at the chamber burning behind him. Outside, Dante's fleet began to die. The Red Host held the blockade around the mournful testament, but Abaddon's supporting fleets attacked with growing fury. Black Legion battleships concentrated their fire upon weakened Imperial vessels. World Eater's boarding craft struck carriers and troop barges. Defense platforms corrupted by the ritual fired into Dante's rear formations. A grand cruiser broke beneath the barrage. Its reactor did not detonate. The ship remained alive, while its hull separated into 3 sections. Millions of crew were trapped inside compartments, losing pressure one deck at a time. The master of the fleet turned toward Dante. "We must withdraw beyond the Ark's gun range." "No, my lord. Another hour at this distance will cost half our remaining capital strength." "No. Then the fleet will cease to exist." Dante looked upon the dying ships. He remembered Orison's wake. He remembered Sanguinius ordering billions to die while refusing to name the act mercy. He had hated his father for the certainty of that choice. Now the same arithmetic stood before him. If the blockade broke, Abaddon could withdraw. If the fleet remained, millions of naval personnel would die. Dante opened the fleet-wide channel. All vessels maintain station. The words tasted of ash. Void shields are to be transferred toward the Ark. Damaged cruisers will form the inner cordon. Carriers without functioning launch bays will advance ahead of the battle line and absorb incoming fire. The fleet master stared at him. "My lord, those crews have their orders." Dante looked at the tactical display as ships moved to die. "Hold." The command spread through the fleet. Captains acknowledged. Some cursed him after the channel closed. Most obeyed. Within the mournful testament, Sanguinius reached a door made from the armor of fallen blood angels. The death masks embedded across its surface wore his face. They began to scream as he approached. Mephiston raised one hand. "The chamber beyond is saturated with mnemonic force." "I know. You do not know what waits there." Sanguinius looked at him. "That has become a familiar condition." He placed the spear of Telesto against the door. The armor faces opened their mouths. The doorway split. Beyond it lay the bridge of the vengeful spirit. Not a crude imitation. The chamber was exact. Sanguinius recognized every stair, every black column, every wound in the deck. Smoke hung beneath the ceiling, as it had during the siege. Horus's banners draped from the upper galleries. Blood stained the iron where Sanguinius remembered falling. Bodies hung from chains above the bridge. They wore the armor of dead blood angels. Ascaelon, Raldaron, Amit, warriors from the heresy and sons born 10,000 years after it. Each corpse bore Sanguinius's face. Some had been flayed. Others had been opened, from throat to groin, and emptied of organs. White wings had been nailed to their backs with iron spikes. Abaddon waited beneath them. The despoiler wore the armor of a conqueror who had outlived empires. Drachnian burned in his right hand. The talon of Horus covered his left, its claws stained with fresh blood. He stood alone. Sanguinius entered the chamber. His warriors followed until the doors slammed shut behind the Primarch. Walls of black force divided him from his sons. Abaddon looked upon the angel. "I do not believe I am stronger than you." Sanguinius lowered the spear. "Wisdom arrives late. I do not believe I am faster. I do not believe my skill equals a Primarch's." "Then kneel." Abaddon smiled. "I chose the ground. I prepared the weapon. I shaped every battle that brought you here." The hanging bodies began to turn above them. "I have no need to be your equal." Sanguinius moved. Drachnian rose. The demon sword cut through the place Sanguinius had occupied. The Primarch passed around the blow and drove the spear of Telesto into Abaddon's flank. Terminator armor broke. The weapon entered beneath the ribs and hurled the despoiler across the bridge. Abaddon struck a bulkhead hard enough to crater it. Sanguinius reached him before he landed. A fist shattered the chest plating of the armor of Heracles. A second blow broke the guard around one shoulder. The third drove Abaddon through the wall. Black iron exploded into the adjoining corridor. Abaddon rolled with the impact. Teleport runes flashed across his armor, shifting him several paces before the spear of Telesto struck again. Drachnian screamed. The blade met the spear and bent reality around the collision. The deck opened beneath them. Faces pressed from the wound and vanished as it closed. Abaddon retreated, not in panic, in increments measured before the duel began. Each movement carried him toward prepared ground. Demonic sigils ignited beneath his boots. The arc fed strength into his armor. The talon fired, explosive shells striking Sanguinius's chest and wings. Sanguinius endured them. He crossed through the detonations and struck Abaddon beneath the chin. The despoiler left the deck. His topknot snapped backward. Blood sprayed from between his teeth. He crashed through another bulkhead and landed amid the hanging corpses beyond. Sanguinius followed. "You wear my brother's relics," he said. Abaddon rose with Drachnian in both hands. "I wear his failures." The demon sword swept toward Sanguinius's neck. The Primarch ducked, seized Abaddon's wrist, and broke the armor joint. He drove one knee into the despoiler's abdomen. Internal plates buckled. Abaddon vomited blood inside his gorget. Sanguinius tore Draconian aside. The spear of Telesto drew back for the killing thrust. Abaddon raised the talon of Horus. The claws closed around the spearhead. The weapon screamed in Sanguinius's hands. Blood flowed from the talon into the spear of Telesto, though no wound joined them. The ancient deck beneath their feet awakened. Noctilith lines burned through the bridge. Every hanging corpse opened its eyes. The Angelbane engine fired. The chamber vanished. Sanguinius fell to his knees upon the bridge of the vengeful spirit. His wings were broken. His sword lay beyond reach. Before him stood Horus Lupercal, radiant in darkness, the talon raised to deliver the final blow. Horus killed him again. The talon entered beneath Sanguinius's ribs and opened him to the spine. Armor split. Flesh parted. His hearts convulsed inside the ruined cage of his chest as the War Master lifted him from the deck. Sanguinius looked into the face he had once loved. There was sorrow there. That was how he remembered it. Or perhaps that was how 10,000 years of poets, priests and liars had taught the galaxy to remember it. Horus cast him down. The bridge of the vengeful spirit struck Sanguinius's broken wings. Bone punched through feathers. One pinion folded beneath his weight with a wet series of fractures. He tried to rise. The mace descended. His skull broke. Darkness came. Then Horus killed him again. This time the War Master laughed. The blow shattered Sanguinius's knees before the talon opened his throat. Blood filled his lungs. He drowned upon the iron deck, while Horus spoke of the Emperor's indifference. Another death. Horus wept while breaking his back. Another. Horus wore the Emperor's face. Another. The chamber was empty except for Sanguinius and the sound of his own heart's failing. Every repetition changed. A banner hung from the wrong arch. The blood upon the deck flowed uphill. Horus spoke words Sanguinius had never heard, then words carved into devotional monuments throughout the Imperium. The War Master's armor shifted between the war plate of the siege and the blackened image preserved in ecclesiastical scripture. Sanguinius no longer knew which memory belonged to him. He no longer knew whether any of them did. The mace fell. He screamed. In the material chamber aboard the mournful testament, the scream came through every Blood Angel's vox channel. The force barrier dividing Sanguinius from his sons collapsed. Sanguinary Guard rushed into the reconstructed bridge. Mephiston followed with Astarath and Lamates, their weapons raised against Abaddon. The despoiler was already withdrawing. Teleport runes ignited across the fractured armor of Heracles. Blood ran from beneath his gorget. One shoulder hung lower, where Sanguinius had broken the armor joint. The talon of Horus still gripped the spear of Telesto, its claws wet with the Primarch's blood. Abaddon released the weapon. He did not attempt a killing stroke. He did not approach the kneeling angel. He had designed the engine too carefully to risk becoming part of its sacrifice. "Let the sons meet their father," he said. Draconian opened a wound in reality behind him. The despoiler stepped backward into darkness. The first Sanguinary Guard reached Sanguinius. "My lord." Sanguinius saw a son of Horus. Sea-green plate, the eye upon the chest, a face hidden behind the visor of a traitor who had come to finish what his War Master began. Sanguinius moved. The spear of Telesto entered the warrior's abdomen and burst from his back. Red gold fire filled the artificer armor. The Sanguinary Guard convulsed as both hearts cooked inside his chest. Sanguinius tore the spear free. The next warrior raised his blade in confusion. "Father, it is I." Sanguinius seized him by the helm. His fingers closed through the golden death mask. Ceramite cracked. Metal folded into the skull beneath. Sanguinius twisted and pulled. The warrior's head came free with the helmet still crushed around it. The spine followed for several vertebrae, trailing cords of nerve tissue and torn vessels. Blood erupted from the neck seal in twin jets. Sanguinius held the severed head before him. The death mask looked back with his own face. Blood ran over his fingers. For one heartbeat, reality returned. He saw the golden armor. He saw the body at his feet. Then Horus roared his name, and the bridge became the last night of the siege again. A third sanguinary guard died beneath the spear of Telesto. The blade entered through the throat and burst from the pelvis, opening the warrior down the length of his body. Armor plates sprang apart. Organs spilled across the haft. Astorath raised the executioner's axe. Mephiston caught the weapon with one hand. Not yet. The High Chaplain turned upon him. He is killing them. He is not here. Then bring him back. Mephiston looked into Sanguinius's black eyes. I intend to. The chief librarian opened his mind. The angel-bane pulse struck him like a chain drawn through the soul. The physical chamber vanished. Mephiston fell into his Primarch. He found Sanguinius crucified between two infinities. The golden remnant hovered to one side, diminished and torn, its body formed from light shaped like armor. It bore the serenity the Imperium had imposed upon Sanguinius's memory. Its wings stretched toward the stars. Every feather contained a prayer, an oath, a final act of self-restraint performed by a son who had refused the thirst. Opposite it rose the black presence. It eclipsed the psychic heavens. Its body was made from the black rage given form. Every murder committed under Horus's shadow, every brother butchered by a brother, every chaplain forced to grant the Emperor's peace. Faces moved beneath its skin. Thousands of mouths called for blood in S-blood in Sanguinius's voice. Chains ran from both entities into the Primarch. Golden links pierced his right side. Black hooks entered the left. They pulled. Sanguinius came apart between them. Mephiston approached through a storm of feathers and blood. Father. Sanguinius raised his head. His face changed with every breath. Angel, corpse, beast, Primarch. Which one am I? He asked. The golden presence spoke through choirs. You are grace. The black entity answered through slaughter. You are hunger. The golden remnant spread its wings. Without me, you are the revenant reborn. You are appetite without purpose. The darkness leaned across the psychic horizon. Without me, you are a statue, a lie, a gentle face carved over a butcher's bones. Mephiston felt the truth within both accusations. To destroy the black presence might erase the fury that had survived death and war long enough to shape Sanguinius's resurrection. To destroy the golden remnant might strip away the nobility that made him more than a weapon. Either act could kill him. Worse, either could leave only half a Primarch alive. Sanguinius pulled against the chains. They tightened. What am I? He demanded. Mephiston stood before him. You are the question we inherited. Outside the psychic realm, the mournful testament continued to kill. Corridors closed around Blood Angels' formations. Entire squads were crushed between moving bulkheads, armor rupturing as flesh extruded through joints and seals. Black Legion warriors attacked from passages that had not existed moments before. Demons climbed from the walls. The fleet beyond the Ark broke beneath sustained fire. Dante watched casualty runes multiply across the strategium. His blockade was dying. A battle barge lost reactor containment and became a star. The detonation destroyed 3 nearby escorts and blinded every auger within thousands of kilometers. A hospital ship drifted into the blast wake, its void shields already gone. The vessel's hull peeled open. Wounded soldiers, medici staff and life support caskets poured into vacuum. The mournful testament remained. The angel-bane pulse deepened. Across the red host, warriors clawed at their helms. Blood Angels' ships turned weapons inward. Death Company formations moved toward engine spaces with disciplined purpose. Dante heard Sanguinius screaming through the gene line. He saw the future without possessing his father's gift. If he remained aboard the Blade of Vengeance, command endured for minutes longer. If he entered the Ark, the fleet lost its master. If he did nothing, there would be no fleet left to command. Transfer authority to the master of the fleet, Dante said. The mortal officer beside him stared. "My lord? You heard me. You ordered all command personnel to remain aboard. I also ordered the fleet to hold. Ensure that it does." Dante lifted the death mask of Sanguinius. He looked upon its perfect features. Then he left it upon the command throne. His assault craft crossed the final distance beneath the shelter of dying cruisers. It struck the Ark through a breach opened by Dark Angel's demolition charges. Dante emerged into corridors thick with smoke and human fat. He followed the sound of battle, then the voice of his father speaking words that had not been heard since Terror. He found the reconstructed bridge strewn with golden dead. Sanguinius stood among them. Blood covered his hands and wings. Mephiston knelt nearby, motionless, blood leaking from every seam of his armor. Asterath and Lamates held back the surviving sanguinary guard. Dante walked forward without his mask. Sanguinius turned. Horus stood before him, not the War Master in his monstrous glory. Horus as he had been before betrayal, noble, beloved, strong enough to make loyalty feel effortless. Sanguinius attacked. The spear of Telesto crossed the chamber. Dante did not raise his axe. The blade entered his breastplate below the left collar and drove through him. It passed between his hearts, scraped one lung, and emerged from his back in a burst of blood and broken armor. Sanguinius lifted him from the deck. Dante hung upon the spear. His boots left the floor. "Defend yourself," Sanguinius snarled. Dante coughed blood across his father's face. "No." The Primarch twisted the weapon. Dante's vision whitened with pain. "You are Horus." "No. Liar. I am Dante." The name reached nowhere. Sanguinius drew the spear back for another thrust. Dante opened both empty hands. "Look at me." The point hovered before his throat. Dante's blood ran down the weapon and fell upon the deck. "Look at what your death made." Sanguinius saw an old man inside golden armor. No death mask, no marble perfection, a face scarred by 15 centuries of war. "Our brothers have died beneath the weight of your last moment for 10,000 years, Dante said. "We have woken believing ourselves to be you. We have killed believing every face was Horus. We have hidden it, worshipped it, hated it." The spear trembled. Dante stepped closer until its point touched his throat. "We cannot survive worshipping your return as well." Sanguinius's face tightened. "You asked us to kneel before a martyr. Now you would have us kneel before a living God." "I asked no worship. You accepted obedience. I am your father. Then be our father." The words crossed the material bridge. They entered the psychic landscape. Mephiston heard them. So did the golden remnant. So did the black presence. Dante's voice shook, but it did not weaken. "Do not become another god whose sons must die to preserve the lie of him. Do not make us statues at your feet. Do not demand that we be worthy of your death." Sanguinius looked toward the golden entity. It offered perfection. He looked toward the black. It offered truth without restraint. Both were lies, because each denied the other. He remembered the Revenant Legion before it bore his name. Cannibals in red armor. Monsters unleashed upon enemies the Emperor needed erased. He remembered teaching them grace, art, and discipline. He had never removed their hunger. He had given it purpose. The angel had not replaced the beast. The angel had been built from it. Sanguinius reached for both chains. The golden links burned his hands. The black hooks tore his palms open. He pulled them inward. The two entities resisted. The psychic realm split from horizon to horizon. Mephiston fell to one knee as light and darkness collided. Golden fire consumed the corpse fields. Black wings eclipsed the false heavens. The screams of every son lost to the curse rose together. Sanguinius drew both presences into himself. Grace entered one heart. Rage entered the other. His body became light and shadow. He saw himself as a child of Baal. He saw himself as the Emperor's son. He saw himself drenched in the blood of foes, smiling because victory tasted sweet. He accepted all of it. The chains broke. In the material chamber, Sanguinius screamed once. The sound shattered every remaining death mask hanging above the bridge. White light burst from his body. Darkness moved within it like veins beneath skin. His wings opened. Most remained white. The feathers at their tips had become permanently black. The madness left his face. He saw Dante bleeding before him. He saw the dead sanguinary guard. He saw the blood upon his own hands. Sanguinius lowered the spear. "My son." Dante almost fell. The Primarch caught him. Mephiston opened his eyes. "The engine," he said. The reconstructed bridge began to change. Walls withdrew. Deck plating peeled apart. Beneath them lay the Angelbane engine, its noctilith core pulsing within cages of stolen gene seed. Sanguinius placed Dante into Astorath's arms. "Take him." Dante gripped his wrist. "Abaddon." A portal opened beyond the engine. The vengeful spirit waited through it. Abaddon stood upon the far side, his broken armor surrounded by Black Legion Terminators. In one hand, he held a small crystal vial. Blood drawn from the talon of Horus flowed into it. Sanguinius saw the path. He could cross. He could pursue. He could force the duel before Abaddon escaped. Behind him, Dante was dying. Mephiston could barely stand. His sons fought throughout an arc already convulsing around them. Abaddon raised the vial in silent acknowledgement. Sanguinius turned away from him. The despoiler's expression changed. Not triumph. Recognition. The portal began to close. Sanguinius drove the spear of Telesto into the noctilith core. The weapon resisted. The core drank psychic force, swallowing the spear's radiance. Sanguinius gripped the haft in both hands and opened himself to everything he had accepted. Golden fire, black fury, 10,000 years of prayer and murder. The spear of Telesto blazed. The noctilith split. A red-gold sun ignited inside the mournful testament. Abaddon stepped backward as the portal collapsed. The final thing Sanguinius saw was the vial of blood disappearing into the darkness of the vengeful spirit. Then the ark began to die. The first explosion tore through its central spine. Demonic control nodes ruptured. Corridors opened into the warp. Black legionaries were pulled through screaming tears in reality. Entire sections of the ark folded inward, crushing ships, cathedrals, and engine vaults together. Sanguinius lifted Dante. "Withdraw." The command crossed every surviving Blood Angel's channel. Assault forces fought toward the outer hull. The Lion's redeemed sons opened forest paths through chambers collapsing beneath them. Flesh-tearers abandoned wounded brothers who could no longer move. Lamates drove the Death Company ahead, while Astorath killed those who turned upon the retreat. Outside, the system came apart. The mournful testament collapsed into its own warp core. The explosion consumed the surviving traitor formations first. Battleships vanished inside crimson light. 3 moons cracked beneath the tidal force and broke into burning fragments. The Imperial blockade was too close. Cruisers disappeared. Battle barges lost shields and hull plating. Millions of crew died as shockwaves passed through vessels never designed to endure the death of an ark. The blade of vengeance escaped upon failing engines. It carried less than half the warriors who had boarded. Sanguinius stood at the observation oculus, with Dante supported beside him. Blood still ran from the wound in the Lord Regent's chest. Beyond the glass, the Vesperid system burned. Victory signals began to sound across the surviving fleet. Sanguinius silenced them. "No songs," he said. Dante looked at him. No monuments, no declarations of glory. The Primarch watched millions of loyal souls vanish inside the final expansion of the blast. This victory will be remembered. His black-tipped wings folded behind him, but it will never be called glorious. The Red Host returned to Baal as a procession of wounds. Less than half the vessels that had crossed into the Vesperid Reach emerged from the Empyrean. Battle barges came through the translation veil, with armor peeled from their flanks and entire gun decks exposed to the void. Strike cruisers limped behind them upon failing drives, escorted by tugs and Mechanicus recovery craft. Some carried no living commanders. Others answered Baal's challenge signals through servitors repeating the final orders of captains whose bodies had already been sealed within reliquary caskets. Many ships did not return at all. Their names filled the Arx Angelicum before their wreckage had ceased burning in distant systems. The Blade of Vengeance entered the Baal system beneath escort. Its prow had been split by the death of the Mournful Testament. The armored wings flanking its command decks were gone. Whole sections of the hull remained closed to atmosphere, their dead still frozen at duty stations or drifting through blackened corridors. Baal received them with bells, not bells of triumph, funeral bells. They sounded from the orbital bastions, the fortress monasteries, and the towers overlooking the plains of fused Tyranid bone. Each strike rolled across the red deserts and returned as a dull echo from mountains carved into mausoleums. Dante stood upon the command deck without the death mask of Sanguinius. The wound through his chest had been sealed, but pain moved beneath his armor with every breath. Apothecaries had rebuilt the damaged lung and repaired the torn vessels around his hearts. They could not remove the memory of hanging upon his father's spear. Around him, casualty returns continued to rise. The angels in Carmine had lost more than half their strength. The Crimson Knights returned with 12 warriors and no functioning gene seed vault. One successor. Chapter existed now as 3 squads, a wounded chaplain and a dreadnought whose sarcophagus contained their final captain. The flesh-tearers had survived in greater numbers than most. Seth called that failure. The Arx Angelicum became a hospital before the fleet completed docking. Thunderhawks landed without pause, carrying Astartes strapped into restraint frames. Medicae crews dragged mortal wounded from bulk transports whose corridors had become charnel houses. Apothecaries worked beneath statues of saints, cutting warriors from ruined plate, removing blackened organs, and extracting progenoid glands from bodies whose hearts still beat. The dead occupied every crypt. When the crypts filled, bodies were placed within armories. When the armories filled, they were laid in processional halls beneath shrouds marked with chapter sigils. Gene seed caskets stood among the corpses under armed guard. Some contained the only surviving inheritance of brotherhoods that had endured for millennia. A single broken seal could erase generations not yet born. Sanguinius walked among them. His wings remained white except at their tips, where the feathers had blackened beyond cleansing. Blood angels knelt as he passed. Mortal serfs pressed their faces to the stone. The wounded reached toward him from Medicae pallets, some calling him father, others using his name as a prayer. He answered neither worship nor accusation. He stopped beside every dead son whose face had been uncovered. He learned their names. The black rage had changed. It no longer came to every warrior as the bridge of the vengeful spirit. The image of Horus faded from many minds. The final moment of Sanguinius's life, carried through the gene line for 10,000 years, had been displaced by the presence of the Primarch alive. Something else had taken its place. When Sanguinius meditated, the sons of his blood found their thoughts quieting across the fleet. Rage receded. The red thirst became a distant pressure, present but controlled. When he grieved, warriors separated by moons dreamed of broken wings and fields of white feathers stained crimson. When he became angry, thousands hungered together. The first recorded surge occurred during a council of supply masters. Sanguinius received confirmation that wounded mortal soldiers had been deprived of bloodstocks, so the reserves could be redirected to recovering Astartes. His anger lasted 4 seconds. Across Baal, warriors stopped speaking. Fangs lengthened beneath their lips. Hearts accelerated. Armor servos tightened around clenched fists. 3 chapter serfs died before the chaplains restored order. None of the blood angels had seen Sanguinius. All had felt him. Mephiston presented the findings without embellishment. "The gene line has become resonant," he said. "Your emotional state now passes through it." Sanguinius stood before the observation windows overlooking Baal's deserts. Can it be severed? Perhaps. At what cost? Mephiston did not answer. Sanguinius turned. At what cost? The act may kill every son who shares your blood. The Primarch looked away. Then it is not a solution. No. It is a threat. Mephiston's pale face remained still. Yes. The lost changed most of all. Some awoke permanently. Warriors who had spent centuries chained within towers spoke their own names again. They remembered captains, campaigns, and brothers long dead. They could distinguish the present from the siege of terror. Many wept when told how much time had passed. Others became something worse. They remembered everything while the rage held them. They knew the names of the serfs they killed. They understood when their weapons entered allied flesh. They could plan, communicate, and obey while hatred burned through them with Sanguinius's voice. They called themselves Nothing. The chaplains named them the Red Damned. Astorath regarded their lucidity as no absolution. He stood within a sealed vault while 200 black-armored warriors knelt before him. Their weapons had been removed. Their restraints could not have held them if they chose to rise. "You remember what you have done," the High Chaplain said. A warrior near the front raised his head. "Yes." "Do you regret it?" "Yes." "Would you do it again?" The answer came from every throat. "Yes." Astorath lifted the executioner's axe. "Then the curse has not released you." Sanguinius stood between him and the kneeling warriors. They can still serve. So can a demon, until the moment it chooses otherwise. They are my sons. That has never stayed my hand. The axe's disruption field awakened. Black light crawled along its edge. "These warriors carry knowledge of every atrocity they commit," Astorath said. "Madness once granted ignorance. Now they possess guilt and continue regardless. That is not recovery. It is control. It is damnation made efficient." The Red Damned watched in silence. Sanguinius looked from their helms to the axe. "You would execute them all. I would grant the Emperor's peace. The Emperor is not here." Astorath's eyes hardened. "Neither were you." The words struck the vault like a blade. Sanguinius did not punish him. "Not yet," the Primarch said. Astorath lowered the axe by a fraction. "Every day they live, they become an argument for using them." "Yes. And every victory they earn will make execution more difficult." "Yes." The High Chaplain deactivated the blade. "Then your cruelty begins before you issue the order." The dominion of the Angel was proclaimed within the Hall of Victories. Representatives came from worlds across Imperium Nihilus. Planetary governors arrived beneath armed escort. Lord Generals, Forge Delegates, Void Admirals and Masters of surviving chapters stood before the three Primarchs. Dante occupied the Regent's throne. Sanguinius stood beside him. He did not sit. "The Great Rift has already divided mankind," Sanguinius said. "Silence, distance and fear have completed what the warp began. Worlds call for aid and receive prayers. Armies die while supply fleets wait for permissions issued from beyond the light of the Astronomicon." His gaze moved across the assembled rulers. "That ends." The compact appeared within the hololith. Worlds entering the Dominion would receive military protection, astropathic priority, access to stable supply corridors, and reinforcement during invasion. In return, they would surrender ships, soldiers, material tithes, psychers, and industrial production, according to schedules written upon Baal. During war, obedience would be absolute. No governor could withhold forces. No cardinal could claim exemption. No forge could place ancient treaty above survival. Dante rose. "I remain Lord Regent of Imperium Nihilus by command of Robot Guilliman and the sanction of Sanguinius. The Dominion is not a separate empire. It is a military covenant beneath the authority of the throne." The distinction mattered in law. In practice, Baal had become the center of power in the dark half of the Imperium. Guilliman saw the resemblance. He stood over the compact after the assembly had ended, his expression carved into administrative displeasure. "I have seen this before," he said. Sanguinius dismissed the remaining serfs. "Imperium secundus. You wore a crown then as well. I wore the crown you placed upon me. That does not make the memory less dangerous." Sanguinius approached the galactic projection. The great rift burned across it, like a wound opened by an axe. "You fear a second imperial center. I fear two chains of command issuing incompatible orders while humanity dies between them. Humanity is already dying between them. The Imperium must remain one." Sanguinius touched the black expanse of Nihilus. "It does not become one, because the map uses a single color." Guilliman's eyes narrowed. "Unity is not cartography. No, it is supply, communication, and force. All three are broken here. You speak as though the rift excuses secession. I speak as though refusing to govern, because unity appears more dignified from terror, is vanity." Guilliman stepped closer. "You are building an empire. I am building a tourniquet. And when the wound closes..." Sanguinius looked at him. "Then you may decide whether to remove it." The lion found Sanguinius later upon the highest wall of the Arx Angelicum. Pilgrim fires covered the desert beyond the fortress. Millions had gathered there, awaiting a sight of the returned angel. Their prayers rose like the murmuring of an ocean. "The dominion is necessary," the lion said. Sanguinius glanced toward him. "Robut will be pleased to hear you admit it." "I did not say it was wise." The lion stood beside him. "Your sons obey. They always have. They once obeyed because they loved you." Sanguinius watched the fires. "And now? They fear what happens when they do not." The Primarch's black-tipped wings shifted in the hot wind. "Does fear matter if it keeps worlds alive?" The lion looked upon him for a long time. "Every tyrant begins by asking the same question." The pilgrim fleets continued to arrive. The ecclesiarchy proclaimed Sanguinius's resurrection proof of the emperor's divinity. Cardinals transmitted sermons across Nihilus before the Primarch's prohibitions reached them. Shrine worlds emptied cathedrals. Entire populations sold themselves into bondage for passage to Baal. The defense cordon failed beneath the numbers. Pilgrim ships crowded military lanes, collided with supply convoys, and disrupted fleet translations. Fever spread through packed holds. Food riots became massacres. Captains ignored warnings because they believed the angel would protect them. Sanguinius ordered the vessels turned away. Many obeyed. Others accelerated toward Baal. One transport carried more than 12 million pilgrims. Its captain refused every command to alter course. Devotional broadcasts flooded the Vox. "We come to witness the Emperor's son," Sanguinius answered personally. "You have been denied entry. No weapon of mankind will fire upon the faithful. You mistake faith for permission." The transport crossed the final exclusion marker. Baal's defense lasers fired. The vessel came apart above the southern hemisphere. Its atmosphere ignited. Millions died inside compartments still echoing with hymns. Bodies and wreckage burned through Baal's skies for hours. Other ships continued forward. Sanguinius destroyed them. Pilgrims watched their promised salvation reduce them to ash. The 7 worlds were discovered within the records taken from the Angelbane engine. Each had supplied the Black Legion willingly. Governors had traded prisoners for protection. Apothecaries had sold stolen gene seed. Noble houses had emptied labor districts into harvesting ships and offered psychers from their own populations. Dante stood before Sanguinius with the evidence. Execute the ruling castes, purge the cults, replace the planetary administrations. Sanguinius studied the 7 worlds. I have seen those futures. And the corruption survives. Then widen the purge. It survives. Occupation. It survives. Dante understood before the Primarch spoke. No. Every path leaves seed behind. Children are not traitors. Guilt is irrelevant. Dante stared at him. laborers, conscripts, men who never knew why the ships came. The question is not whether they are guilty. The question is whether contamination can be permitted to survive. And your answer? Sanguinius looked upon 7 inhabited worlds. No. The sterilization orders passed beneath Dante's seal. Cyclonic torpedoes entered launch cradles. Virus warheads received authentication. Fleet captains acknowledged target solutions with voices stripped of emotion. Dante obeyed. As the first world burned, something within him ceased trying to believe obedience and righteousness were the same. Far within the vengeful spirit, Abaddon held a vial before the light. Sanguinius's blood moved inside the crystal. It did not settle. Golden radiance pulsed through it. Darkness gathered around the edges. The sample lived despite every ward, poison, and mechanism devised to contain it. The Vesperid reach was lost. An arc of omen was gone. Warriors, ships, and demons beyond counting had been consumed. Abaddon watched 7 worlds ignite upon distant auger feeds. Oceans boiled. Atmospheres burned. Populations vanished beneath the command of the great angel. The despoiler closed the talon of Horus around the vial. He had sought to awaken Sanguinius's pain. The Imperium had taught the Primarch what to do with it. Abaddon smiled. The angel had returned, and mankind had already begun teaching him how to become a monster.